Welcome back to the St. Louis Super Swiss.
Great to be back here with some more games. If you guys remember, before we went on to the break, we were looking at one of the local favorites, Grandmaster version, Akobian, that seems to have been out-prepared a little bit by his young Grandmaster opponent, Balaji Dagubati, but certainly it showed us a very interesting line in the exchange. Slav, and I think there are quite a lot of other games that are interesting today. Some people were asking in the chat about the Aram game against Fidel Corrales. Would you like us to
Yeah,
go?
let's go back to that game. We spent quite a bit of time on it earlier.
Wow, it's an end game right now.
And someone in the chat is saying that Aram blundered it back to equality.
Okay, so let's
and they
see.
were talking about the move knight f6. So let's go to...
This was the moment where we kind of stopped here and we're thinking about bishop takes as being the move that had to be played in this position, we thought, but we couldn't come up with a way for white to take the control in the position.
Right. Maybe we should turn on the engine here to see if
Okay.
bishop takes e4 is a move. Yeah, and knight f6 is the move. And
For now,
and bishop
but-
takes e4 is also a little better.
Knight
It's saying
d4.
after knight d4.
Okay, so I was thinking knight g5, but I guess knight d4 with the idea of maybe having some c6 going in a way, but seems that knight f6 is always the kind of move that black may
And
want to
interesting here where I said that if you move the knight, queen h4 check, I said that before would be potentially a problem, and the computer comes down after king to d1, it sort of settles back to equality after it thinks for a little while here, although it's complicated.
It is, it is the kind of move that you don't think you're going to play, but the king is fine in the center, you
Right.
know.
Yeah,
So
now it's settling on white's a little bit better here. So yeah, this is a very complicated position. We should turn the engine back off so we're not cheating here.
But it said, what I was able to see as I turned it off is that in this position, knight f6 was a correct move by black. That seemed to be either that or yeah, that was the main one
Right.
that the engine was suggesting.
And it might be if you play e5 here, you have knight e4.
And now if the queens get traded, black will be happy because he does have some pressure on these pawns. King takes, and then the king can choose whether it's going to go, probably is going to go there. It will not choose anything. c8 or c7, the king should be safe, whereas white's pawns won't. There's also ideas with knight e7 to get the c5 pawn, so I think...
Yeah, it's still interesting because, you know, black's a little soft on f7. So you can probably castle long with check here and, you know, put the king on c2 maybe, but long-term black has chances here.
I agree. It actually seems a little bit, how are you going to be able to protect both of these threats at this moment?
Yes.
It's going to be difficult, I think,
Mhm.
for white to kind of cover both. But, okay, so e5 was not the move chosen by Fidel. He ended up going knight d4. So still putting some pressure over here, potentially having some sacrifice ideas, and certainly c6 is going to be an annoying kind of idea that black has to figure out how to deal with. And Aram decided to deal with that move by placing his knight to c6. Okay, because obviously you don't want to trade here, I guess.
But
I do not know why.
that can be forced because after knight c6, after knight takes c6, then...
Well, now
has
he
to do
takes
it.
and he's happy for the, right? And then if you go e5, then knight d5, attacking these two pawns,
The two
followed
pawns, right.
by f6.
It's gonna
This
come
pawn is
apart.
hanging as well, so I think black is doing quite well in
Yes,
this
yeah.
position. But, okay, if we don't have that and we trade first, don't we get to take this pawn in e4? Was he worried about the capture in b5, and then if you take back knight takes b5, and he was worried about being able to meet knight c7, and then maybe thinking that this pawn would be... not
Yeah,
easy to
again,
capture?
this position's quite double-edged there.
I would go
But
for
after
this.
a takes b5, black's not forced to recapture
Right.
the pawn, and
Maybe knight takes c3. There's bishop takes c4 as an option, although maybe black could capture in g2 as well.
yeah, it's a very complicated position.
It is. It's way too many pieces on the board, and there are lots of captures that have to be considered. No wonder the players have started spending some time. Fidel has already spent about more than 40 minutes, and then Aram started spending more time in this position as well. He played knight c6 after 11 minutes of thought. And I guess queen takes d8. So Fidel did not allow for the capture to happen because we've seen that position.
Yeah,
Probably thought
right, the
it wasn't
pawn's
good for
weak.
him. Rook takes, and now knight takes b5. This is a very interesting choice from white. So he's basically giving up the piece temporary, as he thinks his two pawns, connected pass pawns here, are going to be making more than enough for the piece, as you know, c6 is approaching next move, probably getting it back. And white remains with the bishop pair and with this pawn to be captured very soon. I like this sacrifice. Knight takes e4. Okay, so black does not want to move the knight. Let's just say knight here, for example, or where would you move it? Knight a7?
I think they're all dangerous at this point, because normally in these types of positions, if you have the two pawns side by side on the fifth rank, you have enough for the piece, unless somehow black can force you to move the pawns forward, and black can get a blockade in these types of positions. And I don't see how black gets a blockade if he moves the knight. Because if you go to a7, can't I just take the pawn on c4 with my bishop? So I've guarded the pawn. And
I was thinking c6, but
I can maybe play c6
After.
shortly. But I was trying to figure out how I could get my two bishops into the game. Because, yeah.
one of these captures is going to happen. Maybe knight takes. You
Now
somehow
c6.
have to play c6 eventually. And the thing is that I do want to keep one of my bishops. I would probably... I don't know if I'm really forced to give up the piece back, but I will. Let's look at this position. What do we think about it?
And maybe just bishop to b4 here to hang on to my pawn. But black's okay here.
I feel confident about
Yes,
black's position
yeah.
here.
And black might be
This
better.
pawn will be hanging potentially as well. But I think someone in the chat was asking us about rook takes d8 or king takes d8. If black had
move
played
15.
king takes d8, was that an option? I did not consider that move. What about knight? Knight takes d8, probably not an option, but king takes, that's an interesting approach. Try to bring the king to block those potentially arising two passed pawns if white were considering to still take. But isn't a potential long castle an option for white here?
Well, also, you know, I'm trying to see whether a takes b5 makes any sense here. It may not, because white's always going to get the e4 pawn here.
I'm a little bit worried about remaining pinned on the file, that's why I don't want to do that.
Right.
But it is certainly an option. Takes, takes, knight takes. Nobody's going to make me move this bishop anytime soon, so that's a threat for white.
Well, and I'm not, again, sure that black has to recapture on b5
Oh,
either.
you're right. I keep taking it back.
Right.
but,
So I'm
but
not so sure that you can't move the knight, even
don't think
take and
that's an
take on e4. I mean, you're allowing passed pawns. That looks a little risky, but
I think that would be too risky.
yeah, it seems like it's too much.
Although maybe just takes, takes,
Right, you
and
play
now
a
take.
takes b5, and then I'm going
Now
to try and
take.
take on e4.
Yeah. Because now this bishop pair is going to be restricted by the pawns, and black has two connected pass pawns too. What do you think?
I don't know. That's why I was looking at this, and again, I can't come to a clear evaluation here because, white's going to get a blockade on b4, although maybe not. They're quick because that rook's pinned. So if you look at this, knight takes, e takes, a takes, b5, and there's an immediate threat of b4 to move the pawns forward some lines, and then if you play bishop takes e4, all of a sudden the white pawns on d4 and c5 are blockaded, and whereas the black pawns can't be easily blockaded after bishop takes e4 and knight d5.
Right,
this looks really dangerous for
black
white.
can get b4 and c3, and this bishop could be potentially restricted in a1 when you go bishop b2. So this could have been an interesting choice for black. I mean, white does not need to go for that line necessarily, obviously. We're just trying on things here. Something I would love to do, but it's not really feasible, is get the chance to somehow take and play bishop b4, but unfortunately this pawn will be hanging, so my check here is not going to do much. And the great thing for black is that his rook is protected by the bishop, which means any captures in b5 will not lead to not allowing black to have, connected pawns, because black can always recapture, and their rook will always be protected. So
I think this is a great game for the readers to analyze with a computer at home, because there's such an interesting dynamic here on attacking what appear to be potentially weak pawns on the queen side for black, but it could potentially become strong. And with the various hanging pawns, it's a fascinating position that we're not going to be able to do it justice talking about it without looking at it with a machine, to be quite honest, because it's just too complicated.
Yeah, and for some people who want to get in some training, it's always nice to get complicated positions like this and then get to play them against someone of a similar strength, and that's another great way that you can kind of train your or improve your understanding in some positions when you get to play them with both colors, and it doesn't have to be like super fast time controls. It could be 10-15 minute games, and this could be a great example. Sometimes people are having a hard time finding things to play. But yeah, moving that rook from the A file was an interesting choice. That thanks for pointing it out. Who was it? Patrick, I think, if I'm reading his name right.
Yes.
Pointed it out on the YouTube chat. Thanks for that, Patrick. Certainly an interesting idea there for black to keep the rook on the file and make it difficult for white. Now, knight takes b5 was the option that Fidel chose, and the current position, if we can catch up with it, is here after bishop takes bishop b4. So that was the move that Fidel played. And how do we evaluate this position? White has the bishop pair. Material is at the moment equal, but black is about to lose that pawn. Or that's the threat, at least, in this position. Okay, so I guess he chose to give it up. And somehow, probably Aram has in mind this move, knight to d2 after bishop takes, and trying to chase the bishop while attacking the pawn in g2. So maybe that's why he's not worried. How would you assess this position?
I think it's still very double-edged because, as you point out, if you play bishop takes c4, knight d2, if black gets the pawn on g2, white's going to be perpetually stuck with the weak h2 and f4 pawns in return for having a passed pawn in the bishop pair. And these types of fights fight around whether or not white can control the squares in front of his passed c5 pawn. If white can control those squares to advance the c5 pawn, that pawn's very strong and it's a winning asset. And if black can maintain control of c6, black is fine. That's what the fight really revolves around. And normally the bishop pair is effective in these wide open positions where there's not a lot of center pawns, but black has piece activity here. Again, I wouldn't be shocked if the computer says this is close to equal, but it also wouldn't shock me if it says that white's better here. But I don't know.
We'll have to wait and see how the grandmasters choose to play this position.
Right. We should look at some other games. We
Yes.
spent a lot of time on this game, but
we
it's
did.
a highly interesting position.
We already seem to have a result actually on board 9. Aaron Grabinski won his game against Talia Cervantes, another favorite here at the club. I don't know if you want to check that game
Yeah,
out
absolutely.
or see what happened in that game. That was quite fast.
So I have a long history with both of these players. I've played both of them many, many times in my life. And Talia's been living here in St. Louis for probably the last 8 years or so, and vastly improved in her chess game in the last couple of years.
Yes, she's been doing amazing. I've seen her very dedicated to improving. I think one of my first times being a grandmaster in residence, she challenged me to play some games, training games. Her first time, I think it was easy, but after that, it wasn't easy anymore. And then I started getting to play with her over the board in classical chess, and yeah, I lost some games. So knight d5 was played. I don't know of this move being, I think even queen d3, or Talia's played an interesting move order here. Or maybe Aaron has played an interesting move order.
Yeah,
playing knight c3
he
and
played
then
knight
d4.
c3, and I think she was trying to transpose into a Nyzhnyk. And
Yeah, but that didn't happen since his queen captured, so that would have been somehow knight f6 and then try to get to play. Well, it depends what white plays. Obviously, if bishop g5 or bishop c4 will not go for e5 line, have to stick to e6. But okay, so he went queen takes d4, some kind of Chekhov, or not exactly. I don't think that's the name in this variation. But he went back queen d3, and typically you wouldn't. It's kind of tricky when you take with the queen, I think, for white, because you don't really have a good placement for the queen that's not going to bother one of your bishops. So you have to choose one of the least bad
Right.
decisions in a way.
But one popular line recently has been to put the queen on d2 and play b3, bishop b2, and castle long. And I don't think that position arises directly in this position. It normally comes after queen takes d4 on move 4 instead of move 5. And I couldn't tell you what the differences are, but it arises
like this,
here,
maybe.
and then b3 and bishop b2.
But white still has to deal with this, so bishop d3 would be the way to deal with the.
I am not an expert in this line in any way, shape, or form. I would think knight c3 would be the move, but again, I am not an expert in
Yeah,
this
I thought
line.
maybe white could try to wait a little bit and just go bishop d3, so that maybe even c4 could be a move that the white plays, which typically they don't get in a lot of Sicilians, because they have to develop the knight to protect the pawn. This not being an
Right, but that's
an
a
option,
different idea
Yeah.
entirely.
yeah. But I like that. It's quite an interesting idea to fianchetto the bishop, which we typically end up seeing in e3 or g5 in most Sicilians. So they're probably both somewhat out of theory here. Knight d5 is an interesting move.
Yeah, I'm guessing Aaron probably looked at this before the game. Because it's just not a series of moves, queen d3 and knight d5, that you come up with at the board.
Might not be.
And Aaron is also a player that plays really quickly. He puts a lot of pressure on his opponents by playing very, very fast.
Some people are saying that the game is still going on.
Okay.
I don't know. We're looking into it. We'll let you guys know about it. So let's see. So queen takes f6, c3, bishop e7, bishop e2. Okay, so a very normal development. c3 was necessary here in order to be able to develop this bishop. Bishop e2, queen g6, castle. And now Talia went for e5 to open up her bishop and go for ideas of bishop h3, most likely. And Aaron went for knight d2. That's a nice idea of opening up the queen to avoid those kind of ideas, but maybe prepare for potential f4? Oh,
F4 looks
Maybe
a
not.
little weakening here
Too
because you're going to
suspicious.
have the isolated pawn on E4, and I'm
Mhm.
not sure white's pieces are ready to attack.
Okay, then maybe just this. Maybe just knight
Yeah.
c4. No, we'll get rid of that line. Maybe knight c4, putting some pressure.
Yeah, I
Or
think knight c4 and putting pressure on black's queenside and center.
so f5 was played. Bishop f3. Okay, castle. Takes. That check seems natural. Although, and he offered a queen trade, which she refused. Who is better in this endgame, and how do we recapture? Of course, typically we take towards the center, but is this an option as well? F takes g3 here.
I think white wants to play this position slowly and take with the h-pawn because
Mhm.
white is behind in development.
I would take with this pawn as well. I thought maybe that could be an option too. And where would you place this knight? Would you put it in?
Yeah, I like white in this position a lot because the piece placement I think is pretty easy here. The black knight on c6 is not well placed because of the pawn on
Mhm.
c3, and white can put his knight on e4, put his bishop on e3, and then I think white is ready to advance on the queen side with his pawns to try and put some pressure over there. I think that, in this type of position, you can play for b4, a4, b5, and see if you can make inroads over there.
I agree with you. I would probably put my rook on d1 first,
Mhm.
and then consider the marching of the pawns as well. I would probably keep my pawn in c3 for a little bit longer just to make sure.
Yeah, I don't want to ever push the c pawn.
Mhm.
What I'm trying to accomplish here is I want to see if I can, invade on the a file. And, that bishop on d5 is putting pressure on the b7 pawn there. And if I can win it, I'm going to win the game
Yes,
right away.
of course.
I'm going to have a fast pawn.
Yes. But okay, so Talia decided not to go for the trade. She went for queen h5, and then knight to c4 was played by Aaron, rook f6, queen g5. And why would this game, do we have a result? We have not been told anything just yet.
Yeah. Yeah, that seems
Okay.
wrong here. There's
seems
no
wrong
way
that the
Talia
result
would have
is-
resigned in this position.
Yeah.
I mean, I think there's still play. I mean, I think white plays
Is there a way
probably
to trap
bishop,
the queen? No.
bishop e3, but you got to look at rook to g6 right away. Yeah, there's some tricks here.
Yeah, she has some pressure. Yeah, the game is still going on, so we just have the result. Okay,
Yeah.
we just saw a move. All right, so either the game has finished and the result was placed and they're inputting the moves manually, which is probably not what is going on, but we just saw a move, so
Yeah,
okay,
I think
the result is wrong.
I think this position's still pretty double-edged here. I think black needs to keep the queens on because, like I said,
Definitely.
white is behind in development. So
Mhm.
if you trade queens, you can slow play the position. I think, as I was suggesting, on the queen side. But with the queens on, black can double rooks on the f file, and there's lots of different things that black can try and do to strengthen her position.
Mhm.
So I think
And
it's-
she can also have some ideas with bishop g5 at some point. With the rook staying on the 6th rank,
Mhm.
this pawn being protected, she might be able to go bishop g5 and trade that bishop, but not too soon because white hasn't taken it out, so there's no need to rush to get rid of that bishop that hasn't
Yeah.
been played. So
Yeah.
probably just an error in the showing of the
Right.
result, which I'm sure is going to be fixed shortly.
And Patrick is asking, I think back in that endgame, the pieces don't get out fast enough because the f5 bishop is hanging if I take with the f pawn. And, I guess I'm a little bit loath as white in that endgame we were looking at.
This one?
Yes, this one, because black's rook's already on the f file, so the bishop on f5 isn't hanging, and I am giving black a passed pawn there, albeit it's very securely blockaded.
Mhm.
But I'm just thinking that with my pawn on f2, I've got all the time in the world in this position to improve my position as white, and I have less time, I think, to improve it if I have the pawns on H2, G2, and G3. So I think when you're behind in development, you want to think about, okay, can I slow play the position and slowly improve? Whereas if you're behind in development, you don't want to play a move that forces you to play faster. And I think that taking with the H pawn allows you to play the position slower as white when you're behind in development.
Yeah. And it's actually quite interesting as you're discussing this position. I saw another move was played, and so Aaron went for the queen trade again, and Talia returned. She does not want to trade. She does not want to get into that endgame, and she doesn't seem to have an escape since white is going to follow up with the
apparently she doesn't
trade.
want to draw either.
She does not want to draw, which is interesting. Maybe she's got a good result against her opponent, Aaron Grabinski. So maybe she's trying to push further, and she just retreated now, and she cannot do that just yet. I'm not sure what her follow-up is going to be. She has ideas with bishop d3 potentially, and then moving the rook with some discovery. Even rook takes f2 would be an option. So now white has to move the queen again, most likely.
She's a huge fighter.
She is.
I think she's taking a risk here, but as we said before the tournament, with the rating disparity, you get these types of fights that you may not get between the very highest rated players playing each other. I mean, this is a position as black. I would probably be happy to repeat there, and maybe that's because I'm not as big a fighter as Talia, but I guess my concern would be here is that rook on a8 is now out of play. You have knight b6 potentially coming in some lines, and the bishop to e3, and you haven't helped your position here.
It's going to be concrete for a few more moves. If white manages to get the bishop out, I think white is going to have a better position, but if he doesn't manage to coordinate his pieces to avoid these kind of potential sacrifices, I think black eventually will get that queen somehow back into the game.
Right, but what concerns me about black's position is that knight on c6 really has nowhere to go in the foreseeable future. The bishop on e7 really isn't that aggressively placed, and it's going to be hard to get it aggressively placed. And then, the rook on f6 is guarding the bishop on f5. So the black pieces aren't exactly jumping into the game immediately. So white can improve, and black's got to sort of untangle.
That's right.
But
well, that remains to be seen. Shall we go to another game? Do we have any requests at the moment, or?
Why don't we look at Denis Boros's game on the next board?
Board 8. Anna Maria Marjanovic against Denis Boros. He's another local here in St. Louis, many times GM Res.
Yeah, Denis is a very funny guy. He's a lot of fun to hang around. He's a player that I've also played many times in tournament games, living here. And it's very interesting. He's somewhat lower rated than some of the players over at Webster, but having spent some time over there, when they play rapid events, Denis generally wins all of them, even against the much higher rated players. But then in the classical chess, maybe his results aren't quite as good, but he's a natural attacking player, and in rapid, he's extremely strong, and he has very good results against much higher rated players. I have I've had good results with Denis over the years, that are disproportionate to our ratings because he's a much better player than I am, but he plays interesting chess.
Sometimes when you're getting the chance to play an aggressive player, and there's always going to be interesting games, I think, because even when you think you finally have a good positional game and everything is fine and you should be winning, suddenly out of nowhere. That's typically what happens with me when I play, even like with my dad sometimes. I think I finally got him in some Benoni, and I have white pieces, of course, and then he, out of nowhere, comes up with this tactic that I should have known all these years, but apparently I don't. And then Yeah, it's
I had one game against him where basically all the pieces were hanging, and I thought that I was just dead lost. And he made a move, and he offered me a draw, and of course I accepted it. And he thought he was dead lost because all of his pieces were hanging as well.
I see.
And we put it into the computer afterwards, and of course it was 0-0-0.
Oh my goodness!
And
Okay.
we both had pieces hanging everywhere, and it was just a mess, and neither of us knew what was going on. It was very funny. I've played this line as white before here. I was an English player. These are double-edged positions. This is, potentially dangerous for white, but also white has some positional trumps.
Yeah, you're basically getting a reversed dragon Sicilian with the white pieces, and that extra tempo, which in this case might be the move e3, could or could not be helpful.
Right, because you
D4
created
is-
the weak pawn on d3, which you may be able to push d4.
Yeah, so you are going to try to find a way to get d4 in, I think, and then typically I think you would want to take with a piece, but oftentimes people kind of have to take with the pawn, and then white will remain with an isolated pawn here, and with a lot of pieces being traded, it might turn out to be a weakness. But let's see how Anna Maria has decided to continue here. So she did go for d4 and took with the pawn.
Right, you have to get your pieces into play as white here.
Yes, this bishop needs to be developed. So rook e1, nice move with tempo. As long as nothing is lost, which doesn't seem like it will be. Bishop back to e3. Now, I don't know if that's a move I would want to make here with white. I wonder how aggressive a move like h4 would be. Maybe a little bit too aggressive.
It's pretty aggressive because that pawn on g3 is weaker, and the bishop is bearing down on f2 if you can ever liquidate the d4 pawn.
I agree. I just have a very concrete threat
Yes.
right now, and possibly, let's just say you make this mistake. I think it's a mistake. I better show something. Just for the audience.
And there's a piece hanging, and there's a queen that's...
I don't know. I was gonna say something like this, but is my line even correct if this were to be a line? Because out of nowhere, this queen is very unpleasantly great. I don't know if my line was certainly not forcing.
It's an interesting idea. My good friend Sam Shanklin was playing in an Armageddon tournament in Berlin, and he lost the last round to Wesley So, and he basically got checkmated in the last round game with exactly this piece configuration. Where white
I did not see that game.
Traded the bishop on g2 for a piece on d5, and Wesley's queen was on f5, and he was able to play his queen to h3 with check, and then the bishop takes d5, and Sam had to put a rook on f3 too.
Oh, okay.
And that was it. But I mean, so yeah, this is dangerous, this type of situation for white. But
it is dangerous. So h4 is definitely a weakening move here, although it does seem like it would create some unpleasantries. It's more for white, so you cannot really do that. So maybe bishop e3 does have similar ideas now, just keeps the position a little bit more safe.
Yeah, but you're giving up that bishop, and when you take back with the f pawn, you have this sort of long-term hanging pawn situation, but you don't have a black squared bishop, and again, white can't move those pawns without creating a serious weakness.
Yes, that's the problem, and unfortunately for white, she cannot capture in b6 in between move because knight c2 seems to be losing an exchange in that position. So Danish first played a4.
Right, to kick the queen off the b6 bishop.
And then took. Actually, that's a nice move, but that also creates potentially a weakness. Talking about Sam Shanklin has two very famously known books, Small Steps to Giant Improvement. I always recommend that book. He doesn't know this, but actually in 2018, I believe he wrote that book, and I was having a terrible U.S. championship, and before the last round, I was really struggling, and I was playing against Annie Vang, who was leading the tournament at the time. And I don't think I've ever said this story live, but I was very sad and trying to look for some YouTube chess videos to kind of get some motivation going, and I found his Sam Shankland's video on YouTube here at the club. He was talking about the book, and he was talking about the hook when you're pushing, you know, this H pawn in some situations. It could create a weakness around your king. And I was inspired by that video with these ideas of playing G4, G5 and some QGD. And I ended up playing this line. It was totally wrong. But my opponent played H6 quite early. And Annie was supposed to win the US championship at the time. But my idea turned out to be really great. And every time I was seeing a pawn push, I was thinking about Sam's lecture that I watched online. It wasn't live or anything, but it is still on St. Louis Chess Club's YouTube channel. So if you don't follow the club's YouTube channel yet, I know you're here, but if you don't follow the channel, please do so and check out some of the YouTube's lots of very interesting material. But I wasn't told to say this, so this is just my story, by the way. And yeah, I won the game, and unfortunately for Annie, she did not become champion that year. But I was kind of proud of that game because I made long castle, and it was totally wrong in a Queen's Gambit to castle long in that position.
But I think you know, if you're the grandmaster in this position, you're pretty happy as black here because you've created an imbalance in the position. I think she took with the F pawn. She did, and then bishop E6. But okay, if he does get the bishop in B3, could get a little bit annoying maybe. But Queen D3, okay. And it's not easy to get to the white pawns, but this is one of those positions where it's very difficult for white to advance those pawns because of the weaknesses they create coming behind. And black has time to sort of slowly improve the position here. I mean... But you will struggle, however, to protect this pawn. So you might always have to stay with a piece to keep it protected. Maybe bishop B3, but that's going to take your bishop from some other things that it could do just to keep it protected, because B5 is definitely not going to be something to be considering by black. Right, I don't want to put my bishop on B3, but black can play bishop C7, and black can maybe kick the knight out with F6 and bring a rook over to E8 and then play H5, H4. I mean, those are all sort of things black can do. And white, okay, when you look at this position, you know, white can kick the queen around with, you know, knight F3 and maybe try and repeat, but what is white going to do to improve here? I was thinking king H1 and then getting the rook on the file. The problem is, you know, as I was thinking that, I realized that bishop in B3 will be very annoying for that to happen. And then if I put the rook in D2, then bishop A5 is going to be even more annoying. So, you know, the power of the bishop pair, if you didn't realize how they work on diagonals next to each other in a way oftentimes, and it creates these very difficult positions. If white, you know, say doubles on the F file, because that's the open F file, and black just says, okay, I'm going to play F6 and kick your knight away. Maybe it's not very aggressive, but then what do you do as white to improve? This is what I wanted to do. That's why I was putting my king in H1 to avoid staying on the, you know, staying pinned over here. But it just seems very difficult to do for white. And when you do that, when you play E4, D5, and I've played H5, H4 to soften up your G pawn, that's because your king's over on the H file. I understand that. I mean, maybe I will have to play H4, King H2 in that case, if that's even a possibility, because, okay, if I have the pawn pushed in E4, then of course my queen protects G3. But it's not going to... I played these. Your king will be weak too, though. Yeah, I've played these positions a lot as white, and I was very happy playing these because they were double-edged for a long time. And I guess the longer I played them, the more I realized that the bishop pair is extremely annoying here. And I think over the long term, that black has very good chances because the white king is exposed in the long term, not in the near term, but in the long term. I'm curious what the engine says here, just out of curiosity. You know, there was a position like this, but it wasn't quite like this. But there's a Trojan game where the pawns were not. This pawn structure here was the same. But you know what he did? He did the king march.
there's a game. I don't remember against whom it is, but there's a game. Someone who knows can give it a search. Where I believe this pawn was in d2. It was on this side of the board, the pawn structure was a little bit different. And he got some attack going. Actually, white got some attack going. But, you cannot do the king march.
You'll never get there.
I wish I could.
I'm curious what the engine says here, just out of curiosity.
It's probably much better for black.
Minus 1.7.
Yeah.
Yeah. White's just loose over there, so okay. That doesn't shock me that it's minus 1.7 for black here.
Yeah, this last move makes it difficult for white to do things. Now you have to do something about the knight because that's direct threat right now, and like we already mentioned, rook d1 does not work.
And in the chat, Patrick is saying white has to play e4, d5. Isn't that the only plan? And yes, Patrick, I agree it's the only plan, but as you can see here, my comment about the white king being loose, and it appears that Stockfish is agreeing that black is just better here because white's too loose.
Certainly a better position.
But it's an interesting game and it's an interesting position.
Where should we go back?
Christopher Yu's game.
Sure.
And this looks like a fairly balanced although
position.
white has two bishops there.
So they played
close Catalan.
Okay. Queen c1 was played by Elshan. Bishop e7, castle. Okay, so this is, I think they're still following, actually it's a Sam Shanklin game with black, with white was Daniil Dubov. 6-6 was played in that game. Bishop f4. White has to improve this bishop or else, it's going to be difficult to develop the knight. And also, now after c6, that diagonal opens up. The bishop is in e7, but he couldn't have put it in d6 because of potential c5. So we see these ideas quite often. Knight e5, interesting. Interesting choice to play knight e5 in this moment. As soon as b6 was played, because you're playing the move with tempo, but I guess Elshan is not worried about a potential capture because he would take back with the pawn, right? Yeah,
but he wants the bishop pair, so he's play knight e5 to take on d5 and play knight c6 and grab the bishop pair.
He went for this.
This is a known position here, and again, I've actually had this position in a correspondence game. I think it's in one of the Averick books, and he claims that white is better here.
What do you think?
Having played it in a correspondence game, it's 0-0-0. But it takes accurate play, and it's interesting from both sides because black has the possibility of getting into
something fell.
The queen side because black's more active in return for giving up the bishop pair. So it's an interesting position, but if you put it into a computer, it'll tell you that it's equal.
It's 0-0-0. So that was the game I was thinking of. Patrick was. Oh, okay. Okay. Patrick was saying that Petrusha Unziker. I think it was that was the game I was talking about. Petrusha Unziker. It sounds familiar, so I think that was the one. Yes. There's a King March. Did you check that game? Do you like it? Hopefully you do. There are some other King March games. I love the King March games. It's just because it's so out of control. You don't expect something like that to happen. You think, you should do something faster, but no, you're first bringing the king to safety.
So rook c8, and I think in my game I played queen a4 that I was referring to, but this is normal. And the reason I put the queen on a4 is because it saves a tempo when black plays knight e8 and then knight c7.
I see. Okay, because that's going to be. Where is the knight going?
He's going to expand on the queen side with b5, b4, and then the knights can come in on the queen side.
So probably you won't be able to take this pawn for some reason.
You don't have to expand right away. Black's got time. But anyway, Elshan played queen b5. I mean, this again is a position that can be played slowly because it's closed.
White has the bishop pair, and he's holding on to it. Obviously, the trade would actually help black bring the knight to a much better location. And queen back to d3. probably getting out of harm's way because this seems to be the next move that black is going to play to bring the knight. Yep. Knight b5. So technically, this is not possible, right? Because knight takes d6 in between.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so we'll look at this game and a result before we take a break here. So we'll go relatively quickly here so we can do that.
We have a result. Brandon Jacobson did win his game against Kostya Kavotsky, we were just told. So we'll get to that game in a moment, and we'll show you that game as soon as possible.
Right, let's just flip through the moves here
Yeah,
on
yeah,
this
yeah,
game real quick to see where they got. 'Cause
I'll let you guide this. You have the role. You have Yasser's role.
No,
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
I mean, I think these positions are very interesting. I think that with the queens off, this tends to favor white a little bit more. But again, you can see how black gained the c-file.
He did, but look at these bishops. Once these pawns start marching forward, these bishops are going to be very unpleasant. I love the idea of retreating them first, and those knights don't have outposts just yet. So
and he went over and he grabbed the pawn right away.
He grabbed it. Is that possible?
And he can get away with it too. Okay. Yeah.
Okay, so Elshan won a pawn. Is he going to be able to hold on to it? Is the question, because this is going to be black's next move, trying to get it back.
Well, there's also a back rank problem, so white has
But I don't think this is a move that, I don't think you want to play this to give that knight that square. I don't think so, but I could be wrong.
Right, and you can also play rook to a3 to guard it, but black might still be within the drawing margin here, but white's probably pushing a little bit here.
Okay, and their times are about the same, so... All right, let's check out that game. Brandon Jacobson against Kostya. What? We don't have the game. We only have 2 moves. Kostya did not show up, and the game ended after how much time was it? 2 hours and a half.
Yeah, right. We don't see the moves. That's one of the reasons why I didn't go to it.
Oh, okay. I thought you said to catch up. So yeah.
Well, we'll take a break and see if we can cure that technical difficulty on break, and we'll come back hopefully. And we'll also see if we can get some interviews while we're on break here as well.
Yes, if we have some interviews, that would be amazing. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for staying with us. We'll be back shortly.
The St. Louis Chess Club's 2023 chess season launches in March for the 2nd annual American Cup. World-class chess masters will gather in the chess capital of America, St. Louis, Missouri, to compete in a double elimination tournament for a combined $300,000 in prizes. We will cover all the action live from the World Chess Hall of Fame from March 17th through March 26th. Tune in for the best game in chess streaming live. For more information, visit uschesschamps.com. The St. Louis Chess Club's 2023 chess season launches in March for the second annual American Cup. World-class chess masters will gather in the chess capital of America, St. Louis, Missouri, to compete in a double elimination tournament for a combined $300,000 in prizes. We will cover all the action live from the World Chess Hall of Fame from March 17th through March 26th. Tune in for the best game in chess streaming live. For more information, visit uschesschamps.com. The St. Louis Chess Club's 2023 chess season launches in March for the second annual American Cup. World-class chess masters will gather in the chess capital of America, St. Louis, Missouri, to compete in a double elimination tournament for a combined $300,000 in prizes. We will cover all the action live from the World Chess Hall of Fame from March 17th through March 26th. Tune in for the best game in chess streaming live. For more information, visit uschesschamps.com.
Welcome back to round 3 of the St. Louis Super Swiss event. Before the break, we made this big announcement that there was a result in the game between Brandon Jacobson and Kostya Kavutsky. However, we don't have the game just yet. And as you're waiting for that and for a potential interview, I suggest to go back, if you agree, Doug, to go back to this game because, wow,
Yes,
there was a castle.
everybody's calling for us to look at this game. So
Where did we left it off? We left it off around here somewhere. Oh, wait, yes, here.
in
think we were
19
on-
Yeah, we were right here. Knight takes
Knight takes
e4,
e4.
and white had guarded the pawn on c3 and c5 with bishop b4, I think is when we last looked at this.
Yes, we stopped around here, I think, and black had castled, and we were waiting to see if white was going to capture this pawn,
Right.
which seems
Yeah.
like Fidel did.
Interesting, because
Ooh.
I thought that black would play knight to d2
Yeah,
here.
yeah, that was our final assessment.
And hitting the pawn on g2 and the bishop.
Is this an option? Is this the reason why black could have decided not to go for this move?
It's possible. Everything in chess is concrete, but that seems surprising because that doesn't seem all that threatening, because how do you get your pieces out here? I mean,
Yeah. I was thinking we could probably even take, and then we have.
well, you could put your rook on d2 here, and you're
Or
hitting
d2,
the g2
even
pawn,
worse.
and I don't know
I
how
know,
white
this
ever
does-
untangles here.
I know this
I-
looks really bad. This looks really bad. But instead, Aram chose to put the rook in d2 directly, thinking that is going to be even better. But this bishop is not. I mean, maybe there was another move after knight d2, not bishop f1. But what could that move be? Just bishop e2, and then after you take, just something like this, or?
Well, after bishop e2, bishop takes, and rook to g1, I don't see anything great here for white. I mean, if anything else, I mean, I can check and go into the bishop's opposite color ending, and I can't imagine that I've got any problems here as black, and I've got two weaknesses to work on forever.
Yeah,
I
agree.
I don't know.
We'll get back to this game in just a moment and see how it seems like Fidel has won his game, but we are told we have the interview ready for you guys between Jacob Sanders and Brandon Jacobson. Let's pull it up.
I am here with Grandmaster Brandon Jacobson, fresh off his win against International Master Kostya Kavutsky. Brandon, take me through all of the life of how it is to win a chess game. I would know nothing about it.
Of course. Okay, so apparently the GT board broke, so I'll have to make the moves myself. Yeah, so I decided to try e4 against me. He actually beat me a few months ago when I played knight f3 and g3. So I didn't want to repeat that. I wanted to play something more ambitious against him. So I went for this Rosalimo. he went for g6, castle, bishop g7, rook e1, all pretty standard. Then f6, and yeah, here I found this interesting try to go h3 and d3. And the idea in these positions is it's really kind of difficult to continue for black because the general plans are, okay, you want to bring your knight around to e6 somehow, either through like d7 and f8 or through e8 and c7. But I'm sort of playing a bunch of waiting moves to see how black commits to setting up his pieces before I push e5, shutting out his bishop. And it's not actually so simple for black to continue. So he played b6, pretty logical, just keeping control of c5, a4, a5, and now knight a3. And yeah, I think this is already quite tricky for black because, okay, I'm going to put knight on c4, b6 though is going to be weak. And here he played a logical move, knight e8, but I think this is already a step in the wrong direction. It felt to me like the more precise way of playing was to go queen c7. And the point is that he wants to wait and for e5 to put his knight on d5 now. And now b6 is pretty well covered, and he can sort of continue logically with like bishop a6 or whatever. And it's kind of tricky for white to improve here. I would probably play something like bishop d2, try to go queen c1 and bishop h6. But, you know, the game goes on, you can go with d8. Because the way you put in the game after knight e8, now after e5, the problem for him is that b6 still is going to be a weakness. And if I tried to play it in a similar way after queen c7 and went knight c4, now I think he's in time to go knight d7. And the key point here is that, okay, if I do nothing, he's going to go e5 himself next move. And if I go e5, he's in time for b5 now, and e5 is hanging. So that's why I think it was pretty important for him to play accurately here, because after knight e8, e5, knight c7, knight c4, knight e6, bishop d2, we get this position which looks reasonable for black, but it's kind of difficult for him to move because I'm just in time to stop e5 now that a5 is hanging, and I have a simple plan of going queen c1 and bishop h6. And I think already here he needs to realize that things are sort of going out of hand. He needs to strike with f5. And the reason I think this is clever here is because I don't really have time to go queen c1 because now he shuts me out with that with f4. So I kind of have to take on f6 here and then play something simple like bishop c3. And probably, yeah, white's slightly better here. b6 is weak, my pieces are pretty active, but the game goes on. Like, you can play something like rook a7 maybe, with ideas of either rook e7 or rook if d4, then you can take everything and rook d7 at the right moment. And yeah, I mean, although white should be slightly better, I mean, like, it's kind of hard for me to improve my pieces here still. So I think black's still sort of fighting here. He played knight d4, which, he played h6 first. Which, okay, his idea was that if queen c1, now he wants to meet with king h7 and not let me trade dark square bishops. But I think this doesn't really work here, because after rook e4, the problem for him is that, like, he can't really control all these squares that I'm attacking. Because, like, in a lot of lines, like, the queen would love to, like, join the defense now. Like, there are a lot of lines where he would go queen e8 and f5, and he can never do that because b6 is always weak. And already here, let's say he plays sort of a waiting move like king h7, and I play queen c1. It's actually very difficult for him already. Like, he can't go knight d4 now because I have this trick with take, bishop takes h6, and
that's
h4.
cute.
And if he plays any other move, I mean, my next move is just going to go be rook h4, h5, and g4, just sort of crashing through. So he kind of needs to do something immediately. And if he plays f5 now, well, I'm a lot better prepared for it because I can go queen e2. And he doesn't really have a way of keeping my pieces out of the e-file. So yeah, he went for knight d4 now. But then I found this clever idea, I think, after take, playing rook h4. And the problem for him now is he just can't defend all his weaknesses. Again, he can't go king h7 because it's a trick with queen d2. And the point is, I'm just trying to provoke weaknesses. Like, he needs to either make a committal decision of going g5 or h5, and whichever one is going to have some drawbacks. Like, let's say he played h5. Then after queen f3, already it's almost impossible for him to defend this, because if queen c7, d4 is hanging, he needs to keep an eye on b6 too. And yeah, I mean, he can play something like bishop b7, but then already I can even start thinking about g4, and it seems like black's in pretty big trouble here. So he went for g5, but now after rook back to e4, the point of this is that now I'm going to break with either h4 or f4. And the only real way for him to kind of defend is to go f5 at some point. But whenever he does this after take, like, we see the problem of the b6 weakness now. Like, after rook e1, rook 8 is coming, and his queen is stuck defending everything, and he's in big trouble here. I think his best chance of defense would probably to put the bishop on g6 somehow. So let's say after bishop f5, they go back, maybe bishop g6 here, and they try to hold on the king side, but it's still very tough for black. Because the way you put in the game after c5, queen h5, yeah, it's sort of a similar idea where at some point I'm just going to go f4 or h4, and once he defends with f6, I'm going to be able to take and just crash around the e file. So he played bishop b7, which I think made matters worse. Again, I think he probably has to try bishop f5 and maybe something like rook b8. So defend b6, and the idea now is it's a little bit tricky for me to break through here, because if I go h4, he does have this queen d7 move, which is kind of annoying because he has bishop g4 idea. Then if I stop to play f3, then he has bishop g6. So for that reason, maybe I should put the rook on e1 actually, and then here after h4 he doesn't have the same queen d7 idea. But here you can still go f6, and at least he's still fighting here, because after take, let's say I go like queen f3, now he's in time for queen d7, now that b6 is defended, and it's a little bit harder for me to crash through here. So he played bishop b7, he tried to create his own counterplay along the long diagonal, but it is a bit too slow after rook e2. Already here, like now that the bishop's stuck on this diagonal, when I break with h4 and crash on the e file, this king's going to be a lot weaker now that he doesn't have his bishop on g6 to defend. So he tried queen d5, but after f4, this is hanging, b6 is hanging.
Yeah.
It's sort of falling apart here. He took, rook f1. He tried to be a little bit tricky with f3 and f5, trying to close down the king side. Then I finished the game off pretty nicely, I think, with rook g2 and king f2. And he resigned here because, okay, firstly, if he takes with the bishop, I have this nice trick, bishop takes h6. And then queen takes f5, and he loses all of his pieces. And if he takes with the queen, rook g1, rook g8, check, and take, and then he runs out of counterplay. That's just mate in a few moves.
Yeah, so it looks like you had a pretty good start to your third round. How are you feeling going into your next round? You're probably gonna have the black pieces, right?
Yeah, I'll probably have black and somebody really strong, so it'll be tough, but I'm looking forward to the challenge, and I am glad I played a lot better today than I did yesterday. So
Well, you always love to hear
take it
that.
one game at a time.
We love to hear it here. We hope to see you back soon, and thanks for coming on, man.
Thank you.
That was a beautiful presentation of the game. Thank you so much, Brendan, for getting us through your thinking process. And it was such an amazing one-way kind of game where he seemed to just be dominating the king side. And yeah, thank you also, of course, Jacob, for interviewing that for us and bringing Brendan on board. Congrats for the win, Brendan. And I really enjoyed that game.
Yeah, I think Brandon did a great job of explaining it. And again, it's showing black moved one piece away from the king side, the bishop to b7, and all of a sudden it completely fell apart because he didn't have a key defender over there when he was weak. And you know, the other thing, he made the weakness with h6, which made f5, which was a key defensive idea, basically impossible.
Impossible, yeah, that was great.
So, and Brandon did a great job of explaining that to everybody.
I really enjoyed it. So, thanks again. Hopefully, our viewers have enjoyed that as well. We're back with this game that had finished as we pulled. We were watching the interview, and it was kind of crazy what happened in this game where black, we thought, was dominating in a way here, having plenty of compensation for the pawn down and with the rook in d2. We thought knight d2 was an option, but it seemed that this position, after, what do you say, bishop e2, this position was supposed to be much better for white, according to the engine.
Yeah, I turned out to be completely wrong in my analysis here, and what ends up happening is that c5 pawn becomes a monster.
Yeah.
And it gets back to my earlier comment about, in these endgames, it's all about, can you control the squares in front of the pawn? So white plays c6, and the problem black has is if you move the rook to e8, white's going to play c7 and put the bishop on d6 and put a rook on b8, and you know, okay, white's got a horrible pawn structure on the king side, but he can't move either of his rooks, and essentially the computer says white is much better here, and that's probably right. I don't see an obvious way to queen the pawn, but it's probably not any more complicated than rook b1, king f2, and rook b8, and then bring the other rook
getting
over.
The other rooks, yeah, both rooks on the b file with the bishop there that can be sustained with the second c pawn that can get all the way to c5 to keep it there. and that's supposed to be a much better position for white. But crazy enough, in a couple of moves, black ended up just blundering here. Bishop e2 was played, and now a natural move, rook b2, with the attempt of keeping the rook, restricting white's king from castling either side, and just basically keeping the pressure. But as soon as white played bishop f3, I think black did not realize that in this position, white, although move 22, still has the opportunity to castle. So he's blundered with this move, bishop b5. Thinking that in case white captures the knight, we have rook e2 check, we get our piece back, and then it's going to be an opposite color bishop, with rooks on the board, but differently to the previous position we're analyzing, this pawn may not get to be pushed that much forward because this rook would come maybe from c4 and get it and stop it. But he missed the amazing move, long castle. This move needs to be given like a double exclam, I think, brilliant move. By FIDE, after which black is just losing because now the rook is hanging, the knight is hanging. There's no way to protect both. What a turn of events in this game. We always thought that black was doing fine, was under preparation and everything. And then it's not enough to be prepared these days. You have to train every single part of the game. You can have your openings down to the teeth, but then,
Right, and it's a great game by FIDE because, he was clearly under pressure being in preparation, and, it seems like he was never worse, and he kept finding good moves. And FIDE, he was over 2,600 FIDE a couple years ago. I think he's fallen victim to, I know he's got two relatively young children at home, and he plays in a lot of these open Swiss tournaments where he's subjected to, much lower rated younger players who are upcoming, and that tends to damage your rating. But
that's true.
Certainly, he lived here in St. Louis for a number of years, and he was well into the 2,600s for quite a long time, and he's a very talented player.
I agree. I had the chance to play him one time. I was doing really well, actually. I was winning when I accepted the draw, but I was getting low on time, so he offered the draw, if I remember correctly, in the right time where I wasn't quite sure how I would win, but my time was going down, and I failed to convert my advantage by accepting the draw.
Yes, well, grandmasters are good at timing those draw offers.
That is true.
At that.
That's true. Another result that we had as we were watching the interview was this game between Elshan Moradiabadi and Christopher Yu. That game ended with a repetition around here. I thought that white was able to start pushing those pawns forward. We saw how Elshan ended up winning that pawn, but the pressure on b3 wouldn't have been easy to deal with, so he offered a rook trade and a draw too, and Christopher decided to take it. So that was another result. I think we probably have a few more moves, and this result is not correct yet. Still, I don't know why we weren't able to fix the result. So this game is still in progress, I believe. We stopped somewhere around here after queen e8. And looks like Aaron has found a place for the queen. He was moving back and forth, hoping for a trade, but that didn't happen. Rook g6. That queen is going to be attacked so many times. It was hard. I thought in the beginning that, remember I was mentioning how queen d3 was going to bother one of the bishops, and then who would have known that my one sentence was going to have an effect on the entire...
Right. I'm a little surprised he played queen to g3 and took the pressure off the bishop on f5. It just didn't... sometimes queens are annoying because they attack so many things, and on g5 the queen is annoying. On g3 it's not annoying. So I'm a little surprised by that. But there's a threat there.
What to do about that move, which is very unpleasant. After that there would be a discovery. So he does need to move the queen somewhere eventually, but I don't know if there's some other solution. But
Well, again, he could potentially move the rook here.
Yes, but
Anyway, yeah.
then this pawn is going to be an issue, I believe. Maybe not. Queen.
Right, but if I play rook e1 and bishop d3, and then I put my queen back
To e3?
to e3 or g3. I'm not sure which one, but e3 is probably
So just
safer.
wait one more move. But you don't think you're going to be weakening f2? I mean, it's not necessary for me to move the bishop just yet, right? Maybe I could play queen f8 first.
Right, and then
Or
I was
are-
always going to play bishop to e3.
Three. But aren't you going to have your queen trapped? Maybe
Yeah,
not.
they're yeah,
I think
yeah, there's a problem there.
that's an
Okay,
issue.
so-
Very
so he-
sneaky. I'm very sneaky.
Yes, yeah,
I
thank you.
forgot to mention. I forgot to mention that when we first started. I should have. I have some ideas that I don't share. I don't know why. Yeah, it is hard to find a place for the queen, but
Right.
eventually I guess he still ended up going back, but he's allowed black to get a little bit of moves with tempo, quite a bit of moves with tempo.
Quite a lot of moves
Quite a
with
lot,
tempo.
yeah. Rook d8, that's an interesting choice for Talia. A rook d8. I'm not sure where she's going with that rook. I would expect the queen to go through f8 and then maybe be brought that way and then the rook to f8, but she might have tried to avoid this move coming in with tempo or something. f3. Okay, white needs to take advantage of the free move where his queen was not attacked and just be annoying. Oh, this was a cool idea. I always think it's nice, even in studies sometimes, if I really enjoy doing studies, solving studies, I mean, not, yeah. I have created a couple myself. I have a collaboration too that hopefully one day I will show. But when you get to play a move like f3, f4, f5, sometimes when you get to push either a pawn or a rook or some, there are some studies that are kind of cool like that. So f3, and now here, opening up the bishop with the idea f5. And of course, I would love it if you traded, but obviously black should not trade to help white develop. So Talia went bishop c8. I don't know.
Right, but this is a position, do I want to play f5 here as white and seal everything in?
So did she mess up with this move, rook d8? Because this was one move where she didn't, keep attacking that queen so much. And, okay, she cannot really attack it anymore. Bishop g5 does not seem to work just yet.
But you can play queen f8 here, I think. So you're gaining control over the f5 square.
To try to attack the queen once again. What about f3 still?
It might still work.
f3, but now we could go back to f5 and just attack the queen. And then go back to h3. But then f4 will still be an option. This is a nice idea for a white to get that light square bishop wherever he wants and then try to get the pawn to f5. If that pawn reaches f5, suddenly this rook will have to go away, and it is white that could utilize the extra space created for a potential rook lift and attack.
Right, and that's what I'm thinking. So after, did they play f5 and g4 in the game?
He did not play f5, he only played f4, and in this position he finally developed his bishop, and now this bishop could go to b6. b5 was played. So I guess Talia was maybe considering to bring the bishop back to b7 instead of keeping it there, which makes sense. Knight had to go back, and now she took, so she did not allow the f5 pawn, the f4 pawn to reach f5.
And that's a very double-edged idea if we go back. So instead of bishop e3, if you play f5 here and black's going to play rook f6, you know, the pawn's not guarded, so you can either play bishop e4 or g4 here. But
Oh.
probably with the rook on d8, you
Yeah.
probably have to play g4. And that could have been her idea. And g4 is very
but
committal.
why do I need to play g4? Do I
Oh,
need-
you're right. The pawn is guarded still, so I can play bishop g5.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I don't think you can take. I was thinking maybe some tactical ideas, but I don't think you can take an f5 right now. So I'm comfortable in this position.
Yeah. 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 You have a blockade on the pawns, so I'm a little bit surprised that
He
didn't
didn't
play
go.
f5.
He played bishop e3. He probably has been struggling. I mean, it's move 30, and he still hasn't touched these two pieces. So he was probably thinking, I've had enough of random piece movement. It's time to get this bishop in. But he could have missed this nice opportunity of first blocking the position. One more move he had to make. And this rook does not seem to have another way out other than here. I don't see any in-between checks or...
No.
So rook f6 is kind of necessary, and then...
And I don't know if you want to play bishop g5, and you may not want to trade the bishops, but after bishop
Okay.
g5... No, but I say after bishop g5, to drive the rook back, which is probably a good idea. You drive it back to the back rank. Where do I want to put my bishop? Maybe I want to put it on d2 instead of e3, so if b5, I've got e3 for the knight.
Ah, okay, that's a nice idea as well.
And
Yeah.
then I can bring the rook over, and my knight is really controlling. It's guarding f5 again. Oh,
But
and
what
I've
about-
got this bishop g5
I
thing
know,
to worry about.
I know. See? You just need to show me one idea in the Najdorf, and then I'm just going to do it all the time. Although I saw a tweet some days ago, I thought it was really funny when my friend shared it by Giri, Anish Giri. He was saying something like, you know, you cannot play g6 on King's Indian against all openings or something like that. But you can go bishop g5.
You
every
can,
time, all the
but
time.
again, if you do that, do I care that much if I just
Do
play
you not
rook
care?
a1, and if I let you trade the bishop, fine. I've got the bishop pair, I've got all your, squares blockaded, and
I mean,
and I've
this pawn is going to be my target,
yeah,
but you take with the rook. If I take, you take with the rook, right?
I can take with the rook.
To do that. That's a lucky idea. Otherwise, I was planning to go queen h5 and get the pawn, but this way you can defend. You might even have this in between move potentially, which may or may not work, might not work, because the bishop takes f5.
Yeah, and in these positions, there's always chances for dynamic play for black, because you've got knight e7 to chase the bishop or trade the bishop, and then all of a sudden, black might have a monster bishop on b7. So f5 is double-edged. It's probably not quite
It
as...
attracts more weaknesses, maybe.
Yeah, it's
But-
probably not quite as good as I thought that it was.
But why not here? Because b5, knight e2, and then black is going to put pressure on that pawn. But now black doesn't have that move, so you can't touch the queen because that's hanging, right?
Mm-hmm.
So why was I
Yeah,
making?
I was the one that
Why
had
was
the
I
idea.
making this move? Nobody was saying anything. I couldn't make that move. That move was not possible. But we're going knight e7. That's how we were improving it, right?
Right.
Yeah. Okay. So, I don't know.
So-
I think bishop e3 I would like, but okay.
Yeah, but f5 is more double-edged, I think, than what I was suggesting here, because of the idea of
It also, sometimes, if you're not sure and you feel that you want to make your opponent think a little bit longer, after knight d2, then you get this idea with f5. So you're letting black decide a little bit longer. Okay, do I like this? Do I care about this f5 move being pushed or not? And yeah, I don't know.
But typically, e takes f4 gives squares to the black pieces here. e5 for the knight, the bishop on f6 a little bit better placed.
Right.
The rook is still a little strange on g6. It's a little exposed.
Put some pressure,
But it
but
has
now it's
pressure
out
there.
of. It doesn't have good company. Does not have pieces that help it build up the attack. So she's bringing in the knight, which I like. I think this bishop in in d5 turned out to remain a pretty strong piece. It does not allow bishop b7. And how do you chase it away from there? Maybe you don't.
And we're back to the white queen being chased.
That's a never-ending game. Bishop e4. So he left with the bishop from that outpost on his own. I guess he just wanted this rook gone from the g file so that he could chase the bishop away. But was this the right thing to do? Bishop back here, and how does white plan on continuing this? Because okay, maybe he's trying to get again to an endgame. If he trades more pieces, this is going to be a good.
Yeah, I think it's still a fighting game here. There's lots of pieces on the board, and black has a weakness on d6, which isn't that easy to get to, but black still has activity. My gut reaction is because of the structural advantages, white should be a tiny bit better here, but with the piece activity, it's probably not much.
That remains to be seen. Both of the players are approaching time trouble, shall we say. More like Talia is a little bit lower on time, but if the times are correct, I don't know what's going on. We don't see the exact times until they make a move, the new times. Okay, sounds good. All right. So let us go back to the first board. It's been a while since we've been to the first board in this event. Nicolas Theodorou against Dariusz Swiercz. And I do not like this bishop at all. But does white have sufficient positional advantage on the... Should have.
Yeah, if the readers recall, this started out as a Ruy Lopez 5d3.
I know.
And Darius played g6 early on, similar to his game yesterday.
I know.
Which is a known idea in these lines.
But it transposed to something more like I would say Queen's Gambit accepted, or that pawn structure with the pawns there and these pawns here, or some kind of Slav with c5, but there's no pawn in c5. I don't know what it looked like. I was just mesmerized by the by the position. I was trying to figure out how did that position happen. But I guess those positions could arise from the...
Yeah, a lot of times black is playing for a quick d5 when he puts his bishop on g7, and black never achieved that here. And again, without looking at it deeply, I'm not sure why. But maybe he was just trying to play solidly here.
So he took with the bishop, not with the rook. That's interesting. Probably this opening of the file in the Ruy Lopez or Italian oftentimes is just unclear to me what is happening with the file, because it's available, it's there, but oftentimes you don't have the opportunity to get activated on the 2nd or 7th rank. So you just have the file there and nobody seems to care about what is going to happen on the file, and we see that black captures with the bishop, doesn't even want to think to take with the rook, which is interesting to me. Maybe there are ideas with queen b1, b2, and rook a1.
Right, but black can always counter by putting the queen back to d8
and
guarding the file. So, yeah, taking with the bishop seems like a strange decision to me, because one of the points of the d3 Ruy Lopez is to blunt the bishop on b7. So and that's why I said when the bishop's on g7, black usually plays for d5 in these positions, because he can soften up the white pawns on c3 and d3.
Right.
Albeit he's also exposing himself because he's opening the position. White gets a square for the knight on e4, and also in this particular position, that knight can go to e4 and then c5.
True, but in the same, because the bishop is on g7 as opposed to maybe on b6 or a7 or on this other diagonal to control c5. But it's a play, it's a game that ends up happening. So I don't know. Okay, let's
Patrick is saying that taking with the rook slows black down from playing d5 for even longer. And yeah, I think he's right, because what it does is it takes a defender away from the e5
pawn. But you don't have pressure on that pawn just yet. And I don't think. I mean,
But
well, how exactly is that happening when I take with the knight? My bishop opens up, so I would have to disagree with him. I usually don't get very strong with my chat, but this
okay,
time, this time I will
Patrick, Sabina's
disagree.
getting combative here with your
I am,
comments.
I am. We're trying to be to be more aggressive here. No, I wouldn't say it if I wouldn't be
You know,
quite sure, because I'm trying to find some utility for this bishop, and that's a great idea. Typically, I've played systems in the real opposed with g6 a couple of times. I usually don't get good positions, but you know, that's me. You know, I'm not a GM right now. Who knows? Maybe one day. But
yeah, so, but I mean, these positions are hard to play because both sides have to calculate, you know, playing d5 and d4 in almost every position, and what happens when the pawn structure changes.
I think sometimes there are even ideas when black plays d5 for white to play. But I'm thinking here you wouldn't want this with white because black has double fianchetto, which means that both those bishops will get to be open. And that's at least normally not something you want to do. But how did white get that pawn over?
Right, yeah, I was going to say.
I'm still, you know, trying to understand how that happened because I just loved white's position. Okay, so he just went for it, and Dariusz just didn't want to take. Okay, so that's how it happened. He probably did not want to take because he did not want to take. Because he doesn't have a way to attack the center. After this, I think e5, and this knight is coming to c5, and the position is just it's just unpleasant. And could black play d5 directly? Just counterattack the center just like that? I would love to play this move if
it works.
If it works, if it works, I have to be mindful about this idea. I understand that's a very unpleasant idea. Why did he have to go back bishop e7? Couldn't he have just kept his bishop in a8 and yeah, here? Because, you know, with the bishop in b7, when the knight comes to c5, it's a fork, but this way there's no fork. We can just go d5 directly, no? Maybe I'm being too aggressive,
Well,
but
all of these positions are double-edged, so it's hard to say with certainty. Isn't that square guarded 4
it
times
is.
there?
I was
You got a
gonna
B4
be
pawn.
sneaky. I was gonna be sneaky, but I think there's knight c5 in between move here, and where do we move the queen? Back to d8, and what is going on?
Yeah, see, I get a little nervous in these pawn structures for black because after, you know, I take once, I'm going to have the b3 or a2 f7 diagonal, and it's going to be very hard for black to challenge that at some point. And I don't get it right away. I know the knight hits b4.
I'm deciding whether I'll take with the knight or with the pawn. So trade is going to happen. For whom is it better? I would have more space, so technically I should not trade that night.
We're about to have an interview with Fidel Corrales.
Oh, all right.
That'll give Sabina and I a chance to come to grips with what's really going on in this game here.
Yes. Let's get that rolling.
I am with Grandmaster Fidel Corrales, fresh off of his win against Grandmaster Aram Hakobyan. Fidel, you just played an amazing game with an amazing little spicy ending. You know, take us all through it and show the people what you did.
Thank you. Yeah, it was a very good game. There was a lot of complications, and yeah. So let's take a look at it. So basically, I played Queen's Gambit, and I was expecting an IMSO. So he played, you know, that's what he plays the most, I think, and I played the Samish variation of the Nimso Indian. And here after d5, a3, bishop takes, pawn takes. So first bishop takes was surprising because before on the database he had played bishop e7 and bishop d6, so I wasn't really sure. I was expecting that. and he surprised me with this bishop takes c3, pawn takes c3, and then d takes c4. I have actually never seen this move before, so
Yeah.
that was a big surprise for me. But normally c5 is the best move here, and c takes d5, and that's just like main line stuff. But here he goes d takes c4, and when you've never seen a move before, it usually is inaccuracy, but
Yeah.
But the way he was playing, he felt like he knew what he was doing. So I just kind of played logical. So e4, trying to take the pawn on c4. He played b5, protecting the pawn. I play a4. He has to play c6, only move. And now bishop a3. I mean, this seems extremely logical to me because I'm just cutting off the king. So he played knight fd7. Another surprising move too. I mean, basically every move he made from now on, we're kind of like, what is happening here? So knight fd7 has two goals here. One is to play c5, and the other one is to play knight b6. But it is a very strange move anyway. Like I wasn't really. So here I spent like 30 minutes and I play f4. I'm not sure this is the best move, but it looked logical to me because I'm trying to go knight f3 and develop my knight. The other way I could play was knight e2, g3. I thought about that. Oh, knight h3. I just need to basically get out of the center, develop and attack. So I thought f4 was the fastest, but then later maybe, I don't know, maybe not the best. We'll see. So anyway, he plays a6, also a good move because he wants to play c5 next. And then I just developed my knight. So now I'm one move ahead. I'm basically 2 moves away from castling, bishop e2 castle. And he has to do something because his pieces are kind of weird. Like I thought he was going to play knight b6, but then I can probably just take the pawn and keep that bishop diagonal. It's very nice. So here he went c5, and at this point I just don't know if I have to take, but I feel like I have to because he's castling. So I was like, okay, let me take the pawn back. So I just got the pawn back. Then he played bishop b7. I was expecting that. And then here's another position that is very interesting. I have a lot of options here. I thought queen d4 was interesting, and maybe even bishop e2, giving up the pawn.
Yeah, that's the first thing I think of.
But then he could go castle. Well, actually, he doesn't have castle because I have c6, right? So I don't know. I spent quite a few time here thinking about even queen b1. That was actually a pretty interesting move. Queen b1, defending and attacking the pawn on b5. But then he maybe can go knight f6. And I wasn't sure about that position because I could take the pawn on b5 maybe. Yeah, I don't know. I thought I got excited about my move queen d6. I'm not sure how good that move is, especially after what happened in the game. But this move seems pretty strong because right now, basically, he cannot take the pawn because I have something like rook d1 or even knight g5. Then
you get a lot of counterplay,
and it's like, it's scary because I got knight takes e6, I got c6, and if he puts the bishop on d5, I can go rook d5, and then boom, rook takes bishop, and it's like completely lost.
Yeah.
But then he found knight f6, so I thought it was a good move too. And then here I'm actually have to play very accurate because if I go e5, he can just trade queens and then knight d5, and somehow my pawns are weird. I wasn't sure about that position either. Maybe I'm missing something, but he felt like my pawns were blocked, and then he's attacking all my pieces, all my pawns on c3, f4. So I wasn't really sure about that. So I think knight d4 was a great move too, because now if he takes the pawn on what I want to take this b5 pawn so that then I can take c4.
Yeah,
and I thought it makes sense. So he found another really interesting move, knight c6. So the idea is that he wants to keep these pawns. So if I go, for example, let's say pawn takes b5 to try to get the pawn on b5, he's gonna take on b4.
Yeah, and
first, and then take on b5. Then all of my pawns in the center are kind of blocked and hanging when he has 2 passed pawns. So and then this rook is pinned too. So it's very weird. The bishop is pinned. So like let's say pawn takes b5, knight takes 9. He could also take. In fact, he should probably take first, but it doesn't matter. The idea is that he can take, and then let's just say that I take back here. I thought my position was just much worse here because he's playing b4 next move.
There's not too much you can do about it.
Yeah, my pawns are not doing anything here. Like this is probably almost like might even be lost here somehow.
Yeah, he's definitely doing a lot better.
Yeah, like if I play e5, look at the bishop, the knight. Look at my pieces are weird. yeah, this position looks horrifying. I didn't want to do that. I only have one pass pawn. He has two, and they're gone. Like my pieces are all out. So that was not an option for me here. So then I realized. So he missed this move. I think that he missed this move, but I'm not sure. Queen takes queen, rook takes, and then the next move. Obviously, if I take the pawn, he takes the knight again.
Yeah.
So I was like, no, I gotta take the knight with the knight first. So
That's
that
interesting.
there is no knight takes knight, but this move is a bomb because knight takes b5. Only I thought maybe the only move is pawn takes, so otherwise I just take the pawn on c4. So he takes, and here he has already a big problem. I mean, he cannot even think about going, let's say, knight a5 or knight a7, or because I'm just playing c6.
Yeah, you're too
Then
strong.
he's gonna be down a rook basically for the rest of the game. So that's pretty easy for me. So then he decides, I think he made the right choice. He took with the pawn, so gave me back the knight. Take. And then here, if I take the pawn on c4, he has this annoying move, rook a8. So then I'm pinned, and I might be okay, but the problem is that I also cannot castle because you have knight d2. So I got some issues there, right? And then if I cannot castle, then how can I get out of this pin? Going bishop b2? No, that's not an option for me. I don't think I'm worse, but he's taking my pawn on c5. Actually, I think I am worse. I might be slightly worse here. So I didn't like that because that just takes away all my initiative. And then I just simply play bishop b4. So now my rook is active. I could be playing some rook a6 followed by c6, and then he cannot castle. So he has to castle, I think. Maybe here he can make something more precise, but I couldn't see anything right away. Maybe knight d2 to try to get rid of my bishop. But then I have some cases like I can just play rook a6 and then c6.
Yeah, you're probably a little fast there.
Yeah, I think I'm definitely better here. So castle looks very logical. Then here I have to also make an important decision. Should I take the pawn or should I not? Should I play bishop e2? And I think I made the right choice because bishop takes c4. I think it's the best move, I feel. Then now here, his best move, and I thought that was the move he was gonna play, was knight d. Wait. Was it knight d2? No, knight d2. I just played bishop b2. No. Actually, I thought this was gonna be the move he played. He would play knight d2, bishop e2. Then he takes on g2, rook g1, knight f3 check, bishop takes knight, bishop takes bishop. Then I have this move c6, and I thought this was the key moment of the game here. c6. If he goes bishop takes, then I take, and I'm playing for a win. I think I'm the only one who can win here. Then if he goes rook e8, I'm playing c7, and I feel like this position is the only one who can actually shoot for a win. It's me because I got this move bishop a5. I'm actually gonna play king f2 tempo. Then let's say he goes rook ca, I just go bishop a5, and then my plan is easy. I just play king f2, rook d1, and I put a monster rook on d8.
Yeah,
and I feel like if somebody, his pass pawns are very hard to create. Then I got c4, c5. I feel like this is probably
you're just marching on down.
Slightly better. He cannot block me neither because I got c4. So when I go rook d1, rook d8, or rook whatever, d2 or d3, I just go. Once I put my rook on d8, then he's basically almost sucks on it. He cannot move. So maybe he can make something with e5 and bishop g4. I don't know. There might be something he can do, but I feel like, or maybe I can play king f2 first, and then to define the bishop, and then I go. Then now I can also play rook a7. Oh, what about bishop d6? This looks scary, don't it?
Yeah.
Like any of these positions feel like I'm the only one. I look at my king, boom, boom, boom. I have an extra king basically. So yeah, I thought this was gonna be a good position. Maybe he have to sack the exchange and put that. I don't make a draw there, but no, he surprised me again. He played rook d2, and now after bishop b2, I feel he also missed that move because maybe he was expecting me castling, and then he has some like knight takes c3 stuff like that.
Yeah.
Or knight takes c5 or something like that. I don't know. Or knight d6 actually. Wait, knight d6 is better. That's better. Any move with this core attack.
Yeah.
So no, that's not an option, of course. But then I have bishop e2, and I feel like he's just much worse now. I'm out of a pawn. I got bishop pair. He doesn't have a threat. I just don't see anything here. Then, crazy enough, in 2 moves he resigned. So I thought he was gonna play like something like rook ca or rook da. He played rook b2, which was also basically no matter what he plays, I'm playing bishop f3.
Right.
That's my next move, and castle. So he's gonna go rook b2, and then I just play bishop f3. Now his pin, I'm castling short. Once again, I thought he was gonna play knight f2 to get rid of the bishop pair. Castle, bishop takes bishop, and then rook takes f2, And in that position, I feel like rook takes rook, king takes. And I evaluated this might be the best thing he has, but still it's gonna be a huge amount of suffering for him. Like,
Yeah, it's gonna be really hard for
you
him.
have to play rook ca, and I can play like I can maybe go g4, but I just play g3, and then I'm just gonna march my king, right? Boom, boom. I also thought that I had this cool idea: bishop a5 now before he opens the hole here, so that if rook aa, I got rook c7. So he plays, let's say, h6, and then I now go bishop b6. And now I cut him off completely. Like, look, he cannot even move the rook. So now I'm gonna play g3, king, and he cannot even check me. Like, this is, yeah, maybe I think this might be a draw objectively, but it's gonna be a long.
It's gonna be really hard to find.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I also have ideas like I can sack the rook for the bishop. Like when I keep my king super active, I can. You might have something like rook takes bishop and then king b5. You know, so he's got to worry about everything. Also, how about just bringing the king up to e5? Well, he's gonna play f6, but then he's cut off, right? But if he does, and then I go king e5 and then rook c7, and I win the different color bishop hanging because the king can never make
the king is not on time. Correct,
so it's like stuff like that, you know. So this was bad. Maybe this is what he saw and he wanted to try for a win. Then here I thought he was gonna play rook c8. And that's some logical move here too, because he might be better for him to get rid of the bishop. And then here I was just gonna castle short because he doesn't have knight d2, right? Because then I got bishop takes bishop and it's over. It's lost, right? So, oops, what did I do here? I just won. So bishop e2, rook b2, bishop f3. But then here he goes bishop e5 and offered me a draw, but he's just dead lost. And I had a feeling that he was gonna blunder that. I felt like, because this is a move that he had even before. No, actually, he never had it before, but he was gonna have it. No, like say rook da, bishop f3. He was gonna have it at any point. No, like
he's gonna try to invade it.
But then in this case, that's why he moved the rook. I got this beautiful c4, right? So like bishop b5, c4, bang,
bam,
and another tactic again. No block, and then I take the knight and so on, right?
I love that.
Actually, maybe rook d4 is possible. Pawn takes bishop, rook takes bishop, but then I saw something like c6. I should be winning there somehow. The past pawns.
That gets tricky a little quickly.
Yeah, so basically that's why he played rook b2. No, he wanted to get the bishop b5, but he missed the beautiful long castle.
Yeah, right whenever I saw this move back here,
I was like, I spent like a couple of minutes here just to make sure that, man, am I like, oh, this is like resign. Like you have to resign now. Like this is over. Knight 2. There's no rook move. There's no tricks. Bishop takes 9.
It's always cool when you get to play a long castle.
I thought he was gonna play rook e2, but this is also lost, right? I was thinking about taking, and look at this. Not even time for wasting. Just bang, c6.
Your
rook and then c7. It's like I don't even want my rook. I just wanted the pawn. That's it. Design,
that's awesome.
And then now he cannot even take because I'm going rook d8.
These are the times.
I was thinking about this. I didn't calculate, but I think it does work. So then he goes rook takes bishop. The only move to not lose the exchange, but to not lose the knight. Then I could move my rook, but let's activate my king because I needed to push the pawns and use one. That's it.
Sometimes you just gotta look at a game and just smile at it, you know.
I know. It was nice. I mean, I think I played decent. Maybe there were some mistakes. Maybe I could have played a little better in the beginning. Maybe my queen d6 was not as good as I thought. But overall, I think I was never worse. I think I was probably around equality, maybe a little better until he let me. At the end, I think I'm just really, really better. Basically after bishop e2, I think is when the game already
sort of took a turn.
Exactly. I think this is already better for me, like clearly better. And at least he's gonna be suffering for a long time. The other position that I show would probably maybe better for him. But yeah, up a pawn, bishop pair. That has to be better for me.
Yeah, I mean, it's always really good to start the third round with the nice win. You know, that's gonna put you at what? 2.5?
2.5 out of 3.
That's an amazing score. You're now tied first because Mr. Antipov took a round by this turn. So you're tied for first. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling great. I'm feeling good. You know, playing 22600, got 1.5 out of 2. That's a big deal. So.
It's always a big deal. And we love to hear it. Good luck to you in the next round, Fidel. And thanks for coming on.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Jacob, for bringing that interview. What an enthusiastic Fidel Corrales you guys have seen. I really enjoyed that interview, especially his enthusiasm about being able to castle long. That was That was great, Doug. What did you think
I,
about
I thought it was a great interview. Fidel's a great guy. He's always happy. And I'm looking at Patrick, your comment here about, oh man, Fidel's going to beat himself up over that comment that I was never worse. And I don't know exactly where you're referring to, Patrick, in terms of where he was worse. I know he didn't think that black could play bishop takes e4, which, Sabina and I have turned on the computer, and the computer seems to think this is the best move, and it's about equal after knight d4.
After knight d4, yeah, but in his interview he was mentioning more like knight g5, rook d1, but that bishop d5 seems to kind of keep black's king safe
Right.
for the moment, and then try to get the queen away.
So you're saying knight d4 and king takes d8 was better for black, so... And exactly what move, Patrick, were you referring to here? You're saying knight d4 was -1.
Might here, really?
Oh, okay. Well, you're probably using a stronger computer than we are. We just
Yeah,
have
maybe
Stockfish and Leela.
14, yeah.
So, yeah, it's not shocking to me that black would be better in this position. And I think when we were doing the commentary, we thought that this was... the best move.
Oh, maybe he means in this position after the trade. Maybe he means in this position, because
queen
here
takes
we
d8,
did talk
right.
about this position. And was it here? No,
Oh,
sorry. Queen takes d8, and here instead of rook takes d8. Maybe he talks about
Yes.
king takes d8, because that was the move that he suggested
Yes,
earlier,
yep.
and that was definitely the move that was bringing black a much better position. But earlier we were talking about that position here.
Right. So you are correct there, and again, this is one of these games. It's a fascinating game to watch. It's extraordinarily complex, and as you can see, the grandmasters, they don't know exactly what's going on when they're playing these games. It's easy to have a narrative after the game.
Yeah, I was actually surprised when Fidel mentioned in the interview, game analysis, that he shared with us was that after playing bishop e5, his opponent offered a draw, not realizing that after castle it is game over. So I don't know if he really didn't realize, or he tried last thing hoping for white to forget about the fact that long castle is possible. But what a game that was, and the interview. So
Yes, it was a fun game, and
definitely requires more analysis. I really
and I think Fidel did a very nice job explaining that, and I'm happy with the analysis that Sabina and I did on this. I think we came up with at least a lot of the ideas there, and it was a fun game to look at.
But let's go back, because as we're approaching time trouble, and there is, I don't even know if I can call it time trouble, because the time control, if you guys remember, is 90 minutes plus 30 seconds increment, and that's it. No additional time, no 40 moves, no sudden death, nothing. Like, that's it, an hour and 30 minutes. And players are approaching the end of that. Maybe they even finished their games. As you guys may remember, there is a delay in showing the games. We are live 100%, so we are here, but they may be done with their games while we are waiting for the moves to show up. And we left off the position somewhere around here. Well, actually a little bit earlier, when I was trying very much to make this d5 move possible a little bit earlier, but it seems like in the end it was it was made, but a little bit too late for black, probably, because the position seems so much better for white from a positional standpoint, because now there's that outpost, e5 was possible, and I really enjoy white's position here.
Yeah, and when you were referring to the Queen's Gambit, there are some lines in the Slav where, white can force the b5 pawn forward and you get this knight position here.
Mm-hmm.
So it really is reminiscent of a semi-Slav here that went wrong for black when you look at this position. I mean, there's differences, of course, but it's not impossible for this to arise from that opening, even though it's an e4 Ruy Lopez.
I totally agree, and I really loved white's idea here. It's an idea that you and I have talked about in other games, this h4, h5 idea to weaken the king, but not necessarily to just weaken the king, but get h6 in as soon as maybe Darius is trying to go for a draw here, repeating the position, But now, or maybe because the knight moved, he was trying to get to h4, but now h6 was played, and what are you doing? Because if you put the bishop in h8, it's going to be restricted by these two pawns, but if you put the bishop in f8, you're still not really having a better life. You have to try to find a way to get it somehow into play, either that way or somehow through here. If you manage to, it's... And in that case, still, Black's king is quite weak. If the knight gets to f6, it's going to be very unpleasant. And knight g4 was played with the idea knight f6. Maybe Black's king finds itself safe for the moment, because, especially because the position is closed. There's no queen coming in yet, but
You know,
it's unpleasant.
this is one of those things where the computers in Leela, and there was this book, Game Changer, that came out a
Yes.
couple years ago that's changed our understanding of chess. And when that pawn gets to h6, you know, the black king is in danger from the queen because of the possibility of checkmate on g7. And even though obviously the white queen isn't anywhere close to that, it's always a danger. And even if you trade into an endgame, black has a problem that his king can't stray very far from that pawn, because if he loses the h7 pawn to, you know, say a knight, or even a sacrifice on g6 with a bishop, if the f pawn moves forward, the pawn can queen. So effectively, in a lot of these endgames, black is playing a piece down, and the piece he's playing down is the king.
Yeah, and the king becomes very much valuable in an endgame. We don't have a physical value that we're giving to the king, like points, like
Right.
we're giving to the other pieces. But you know that the king is very important to stop pass pawns, to maybe grab some of your opponent's pawns and create your own pass pawns. And not being able to bring it into play is going to be very tough for black to deal with this position.
I was at a chess camp a year ago, and one of the trainers there was Magnus Carlsen's second, Peter Heine Nielsen, and he was showing us a position out of their preparation where in the classical King's Indian, white pushed his pawn a4, a5, a6, and allowed black to play b6. And normally in the classical King's Indian with bishop e2, knight f3, d5, you know, white wants to open up the queen side. And his point is that after you fix the pawn on a7, is white can put a knight on b5, he can put his bishop on e3, you trade all the pieces, and then you can actually sack both pieces on a7 and b6, and white will have two passed pawns, and they'll queen and win the game.
I see.
And it was literally fascinating. They were looking at this from a long-term perspective, that if you lock the pawn structure like this, that ultimately it was a winning position. And so here, and I'm not saying that white is winning this position right here, but this is a position that black is going to suffer in forever, because he cannot extricate his king from the corner.
That's totally true.
And even if, you know, white trades or black trades the queens here, and then the knight on f6, there's entry squares for the bishops, you know, on a5. I mean, white will have to bring the king all the way to a5 to try and get in that way.
Yeah, get the bishop in somewhere.
And how does the knight keep the king out? It would have to be on b7.
I also think for white, if queens get traded off the board, it's not easy. Of course, white has to kind of figure it out, maybe get the bishop to c3. I was about to say f4, g4, f5. I think that is the right plan for white in this position. Just make sure that queen of blacks does not get activated, because you really do have, like someone was saying earlier, Trebal style, Capablanca Trebal style position. Not exactly as good for, not exactly as dominating for white, but certainly quite like it was in that game where all of black's pieces were dead. Here's just the king and this bishop in b7, but that could prove to be enough for white. I really would love to go here. I don't even think I would go on the king, on the queen side. Just do this.
They have no time left, which will be interesting.
They don't have much time left. No, 5 minutes left altogether. And okay, with the 30 seconds increment, the games may have already been over.
But another interesting game is board 2 with Ilya and Brian Escalante here.
What is going on in this endgame? 2 connected passed pawns for white. Actually, white is...
But they're not that far advanced, those
they're
passed
not,
pawns.
but that's the right corner bishop, which means this knight won't be able to be sacrificed for the pawns. So if this king manages to stop those, I think this, it has to be calculated. Okay, yeah, that I would have played that instantaneously. Now the problem is this knight will go to a7, and it's hard to get the knight away from a dark square. So the question is, do we bring in our king a little bit to be closer to the e-pawn, or do we have time to push? If we push here, what happens? Does black play knight a7, or does he push e4? This is the type of position where you have to calculate. You can't just go by feelings
Right.
very much.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure this is, a position the computer can figure out
Yeah, of
100%
course, of
whether it's a
course.
win or a loss for one
No,
side.
but if you allow this, I think white should be winning. King c2 and
Right, I think when
you
the
don't
pawn
have to-
gets to b4, you have to put your knight
Yeah,
on a7.
you need to make this move, yes. So now, this bishop in h1, I love it very much because it blocks the h-pawn, but in the same time, if this move is going to be played, we'll have to figure out what to do. Bishop c6 is probably not the wisest idea because he
Well, I
just
can just
takes
take
it.
it, and
Yeah.
I've got the pawn stopped.
So we cannot just suddenly, magically make the bishop go there. It would be possible. If it would be possible, then we would not be talking about
I mean,
this.
it's very possible that this position is just a draw because the knight has the pawns blockaded and neither side can improve, i.e. white can't, move the king up to c4, c5 because the pawn had queen.
I think black can create this kind of blockade in a way with the knight here because this
Right.
way the knight with the pawn and the king, they kind of restrict white's king from going up. And, pushing the pawn and giving it up, it's not going to help white in any way because then the knight can just be sacrificed for the pawn. But I don't know if this could be a Zugzwang kind of position. I don't think so. So is there a way for white after knight c8 to not to get this bishop stuck
so
there?
Patrick is telling us that the engine says that this is 0, 0, 0, which really isn't that
Yeah.
surprising because I don't think that black can try and win because the bishop's long-range capability. So that's probably. But when I was looking at the game from afar, it was kind of interesting. I don't know what the current position is, but
The position is here. Nothing has changed since 1988.
nothing's changed. Okay.
No new move has appeared. Not yet, no.
And then in terms
And
of
then there was this game again of Gleb Dudin against Yasser Quesada Perez with an extra pawn for white. But what do we have here? No, possibly a second pawn is going to be captured. White should be winning this game. Black has some activity, but that's about all he has. I think once we capture that pawn, we can just bring in the king.
And this is a pretty big upset. Quesada Perez over at Webster University, they worship him for his understanding of chess. Even the higher rated players over there, they just believe his understanding of the game is very, very high. So even though the rating differential here is only 140 points, Yasser Quesada Perez is a very, very strong player. So this is a big upset.
I'm really surprised about White's choice to go like this. One thing that I've learned as a long-time professional player, although I know my rating is not very high right now, and you might not want to believe me, but that's okay. I'll give you the advice anyways. In positions when you're winning or in positions where you think they're a draw, don't force the draw.
Yeah.
Don't try to force the draw or the win. You are going to mess things up. And I don't like that before. I could be totally wrong. But that seems like a little bit, there was nothing, no threat whatsoever.
It allowed counterplay.
Yeah, why would you do that?
It allowed counterplay.
Because, if these pawns get traded here and you don't stay with your extra pass pawn, which you won't, you just give up a pawn for free. I don't understand.
Well,
What was
I
Black's threat?
think doesn't white get the pawn back with rook a1 and takes a5, but you left yourself with a weak c4 pawn and a weakness on g2.
I understand, but how? How exactly? I mean, I'm
Right, you gave it back and now you're at 4 on 3. Yeah.
yeah, and those are blocked, so
That's
What was happening here? What was in White's mind here? Why would he do that? Are we missing any tactical idea for Black? I don't see anything. Trading the bishop, is that something you could have? But I mean, I would be happy with White if you trade my bishop, right? Because we just, I mean, I can even play King G3. Am I missing something here? You can then play b4. Once those bishops are traded, you don't even need to do that.
Right. If you trade the
just-
bishops, right, you can play b4. You can lose one of the pawns, but if you have the outside a pawn and you got an extra pawn on the king side, it has to be a winning endgame.
Yeah, this should be winning, I believe. Because I mean, you don't need to trade these pawns off. Like once, you know, let's just assume something like this could happen, and then you can put your rook here, and then you can just bring in the king. Just put your pawn all the way to e6 and bring in the king to go grab this pawn.
Right. That's
Yeah,
that's
you're not
exactly
going
the
to push.
position I
You're
had
not
in
going
mind
to
when I
push.
had that.
You
made
can
that comment.
actually, you might be able to win even if you play f4, because even if that gets traded, or if you take, then you have a6. So you're
Well,
winning in this either way. I think.
If you think about this position, Black has to play rook c5 right away to guard the pawn, or otherwise you're just going to play rook a5 and take it.
Even worse.
Right.
Well, is that going to be easier to win? I prefer to have a further away pass pawn than to take that.
Right, but what I'm saying is if you don't play rook c5, I'm going to play rook a5, and you don't really have a way to guard the pawn ever. Now I can improve my king, and I can choose when to take the pawn.
Correct.
'Cause
Yeah.
you can't play king e7 because I take with check and I go back. So you almost have to play rook c5 here as Black, and then I can just improve the position at my leisure.
So we don't know what we're missing.
b4 seems terrible.
B4
and that's
does not seem.
unfortunate.
I mean, let's just see what the engine says, just in case. Yeah, it just gives up all the advantage.
And so in b4 it goes to zeros.
Yeah, it goes to 0.5.
Yeah, well that's
But
really a shame.
it says bishop c8 though, so there is something here that we are. Is this an idea for Black? Maybe that's finally something that we can come up with. That could be annoying. Okay, so now we see that there's something that could be unpleasant to think about. But okay, all right. In that case, we don't take. We could go maybe bishop c8, a6, b5 to kind of have our pawns protected over there, and then we can go b4 if that's what we want to do.
So it's harder than what we were
It's a
suggesting.
little bit
it
harder.
was, yeah.
I was totally missing Black's counterplay, so there is something there anyways, but still this seems a little bit too soon, allowing the wow, he let the A pawn?
Yeah, White's still being ambitious here, but
White has been a little bit too ambitious. What is he planning to do after this?
yeah, because that bishop on g4 is not that great. It doesn't have a lot of scope.
Yeah, rook and bishop don't really create much, too many threatening ideas. If that was a knight on the other case, it would have been
Right.
brilliant.
But if he was going to play b4 because he was concerned about the counterplay, I don't know why he wouldn't have eliminated the a pawn and just said, okay, I'm a pawn up and all the pawns are on the same side and I'm going to agree to a draw and go on. Whereas here, White's risking. I don't know what the evaluation is here, but yeah, it's still plus
Still
0.2.
equal. But I play rook c3, a3 or rook d4.
Right, but this is a
seems to be-
position that White could lose, even though the evaluation doesn't
Yeah,
show.
I would never allow. I would never want to allow. I have done it in the past, but he must be really desperate. He must be very desperate to try to win this position, for allowing the a pawn. But why is he?
Yeah, in a recent tournament of mine, I took an extra pawn like this, and I couldn't, extricate my king side, and all of a sudden the pawn on the queen side became a monster, and I lost, and I was highly agitated at myself for that stupidity of trying to win from a position that it really shouldn't have tried to. So, and again, I mean, objectively, Black's not in trouble or White's not in trouble, but
Yeah, but it's just unpleasant to play with
Right.
such a far away pass pawn that's protected, and the bishop can be chased away. They might agree on a draw very soon in this game, I have a feeling. The other two games left here were this one of Aaron against Talia that we spent quite some time on earlier, but now What has happened? He has a pawn for the rook. Is there mate coming? Is there an unstoppable mate after this move, queen to g5? There are two mates that I see, or three if you want to count that g7 square as two. Options, is there a way for black to defend that mate? I don't see one. So how did he, oh wow, okay, so he took advantage of this pin after bishop to d3 and played rook f7, which is a very nice move to bring in a piece to the attack. And after rook takes g7, you kind of have to recapture, otherwise bishop f6 comes in and mate, or even rook g8 and bishop f6. No, just bishop f6. And now Talia had to go to h8, or else there's queen g5 coming with mate.
There's no choice. It's mate in one otherwise. Now
It's mate, or she lost some time.
yeah, I don't see
see
a
a
way out.
defense.
That's a very nice finish for Aaron there.
Wow. Imagine that more than probably 75% of the moves that he's made in this game were with the queen. I mean, I don't even know what to say. That gives up all the rules
right.
of chess, you know? You're just, whatever you learn is just...
It's a tribute to Talia's fighting spirit that she kept playing on. But, you know, like I mentioned earlier in the game, I thought she was taking some risks here because her pieces didn't coordinate super well, and white had squares in this game. But again, you know, if you want to get ahead in the chess world, you have to fight, and she did that. And unfortunately for her, she paid a price for that fighting spirit today.
That is a pity. That was, well, a nice comeback for Aaron. Let's see some of the other games that we had here. I thought Maria Malika.
She drew with Dennis, it looks like. I have a draw.
Oh, no,
No,
Dennis.
no.
Oh, that game. No, I was looking at another one. So that game, we stopped somewhere around here where we thought black was much better. So how did they end up drawing? So he didn't put enough pressure on those weaknesses over here?
Right. This is a game we're looking at where black was better by 1.5 points.
So he won this pawn but gave up b7. Was it necessary to give up that pawn? b5 wasn't an option?
He sacked a piece.
Wait, where?
On the next move, rook takes e3, and then he took on g3.
Oh, wow. Okay. All right. No, I was just thinking this move first, because that's still a weakness. That's not a real one. But okay, he chose to make that. Did he think that he had a win here? Bishop takes f3, rook takes. And, well, okay, this would be definitely good for black. That he just needs to make some air, and then that's hanging. This rook is coming into play. So queen e7. So she played. Oh, nice comeback with the queen. What? Oh, rook f5 is not possible because of g4.
Yeah, that's probably what he missed when he went into this whole variation.
This whole line. So now he has to go for rook takes a3 in order to try. So he sacrificed the queen. So he has two rooks for queen and a bishop. But okay, g6. That makes sense.
And she just
and
takes
she
a
has a
draw
perpetual.
by perpetual check. Yeah.
So he must have missed this move. This beautiful backward vision is very important for a chess player. That is a theme that very famous grandmaster Maurice Ashley has in his course on Chessable, The Secrets of Chess Geometry. He talks about that quite a lot. So queen goes back to e2, and now, yeah, what a defense. What about, and you cannot go rook b3, that's the problem, because back rank. So that game ended in a draw.
Yeah, I'm interested in the computer evaluation of b5 there, just real quick.
Of b5 here?
Yeah. Yeah, it's -1 point. It's -2 essentially if black plays
Yeah.
b5.
Oh,
Yeah.
it said that this was the best move, but not giving up the bishop.
It still says that
It
black
still
is
says
winning
black
there.
is winning.
Now
Oh, so
we're-
this was the blunder. A rook takes first. Oh, I see. The difference is that now
You don't have queen e2
you have a
at the end
bishop
of it.
because you have a bishop that's threatening the
Mhm.
mate. Oh, just a small move order can change the
Yes.
entire thing. Another very famous theme.
Well, that's
that has-
very unfortunate for Dennis because
Yeah.
he looked like he played a very good game.
He played
there.
a very good game here.
And
But b5 was definitely like more, well, I guess rook takes or bishop d6. Okay, well,
So we want to go back to board
one
maybe?
and see. Lots of changes in this position. Looks like in the end, Dariush ended up giving up his bishop for that annoying knight in f6 in order to free his king. But has he really freed his king? At least now white doesn't have a majority. So that's one thing he's been able to do here. But the bishop pair is going to be so annoying to deal. Oh, bishop g5, not pawn g5?
I think white is trying to keep the squeeze on there.
He's trying to find a way to take there at some point, possibly.
Yeah, I think it's just a matter of you want to keep the black king in a cage. And if you allow the exchange of pawns, the black king might get out of the cage. Yeah,
No,
and
no, I didn't want to trade there. I want to go g5.
No, I understand, but I'm just saying that when the knight moves, that you're going to have the bishop being
Yes,
able to
yes.
hit the f5 pawn. And then
So
you-
maybe he wanted this because in case of a trade, he's considering maybe taking with the pawn.
Yeah, with taking with the pawn, everything's still caged in there. Yeah.
But and maybe he will have this kind of option as.
But I'm a
We'll have to
little
see.
surprised, though.
But black would never want to take, because if they take.
Right, that's why I
ooh,
say you can just let it sit there. Black's never
Yeah,
going to want to
right.
take. That's
tough.
But I'm a little surprised white didn't go for a queen trade in this position.
Queen e2.
Yeah, with queen e2. And I'm not certain that it's winning, but if, let's say black trades, my plan is just to, king d2, c3, b4, a5, b6. And yeah, sure, black can put his knight on d7. Okay, so now you've blocked all of your pieces in for the rest of the game. And now I got to see if I can,
Where's black gonna put his knight?
on d7 to keep my king out.
But is he gonna take or not?
I don't think you can take.
Because we take with the bishop, I think, right? Or do we take still with the pawn?
And now I guess the question is that an absolute blockade? I mean, black's going to be limited to moving his king back and forth.
How far can he go? He
I don't
cannot
think, I don't
because
think
you
he can go very
take.
far. 'Cause I'm
He
gonna
can't.
Right, he's got to stay in the cage. Okay, so,
Okay, he's gonna stay there. Fine. Okay, then he's gonna stay with the bishop.
right. And black can move back and forth forever and ever.
But we have this.
We have that in some lines. Is that good here? Maybe.
Who is better? I think I'm winning.
Well,
Oh my god, this is a blockade. No, wait, can we?
no, you can't give that pawn up. His knight takes.
No, but, wait, he will take here. No, can he? I don't know. I have to play there, so I will play here, and then I'll play, oops, and then I'll play there.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was a blockade,
Right.
but I don't know.
It might be a draw.
This knight comes out.
Right.
Let's just show this line. I think it's so pretty. I think it's really pretty. Can white win this position? I'll take here. He cannot win this position. This is.
Yeah, I think you're right. You can't win the position.
Okay, I definitely could have taken in g6 at some
Right,
point,
right,
but
right,
but
right.
I just thought that had to
Yeah,
be shown because it was.
Yeah, it's probably a blockade.
Okay. This is a study-like position. If someone says this, and you're
Patrick's
creative
suggesting
enough.
we can play king b6 instead of king takes b5. Maybe, I'm not sure.
Well, this is a pawn that black can take at some point, which I kind of let it slip
Right.
a little bit, which I should have considered. But I mean, that's certainly when you have so little amount of time, you don't have time to evaluate all that. So if you're trying to play for a win, you know, you might want to keep the queens on the board.
Right,
a
keeping
little
the
bit
queens on
longer.
the board is probably more practical.
Until you try to figure out whether you can win or not, and just make some moves to give yourself some extra time. But they are not really gaining time.
Right,
The
but
time is
also
the same.
the black queen has squares.
It does.
And-
It does
and,
have.
you know,
yeah.
because white's pushed everything forward, so when you push stuff forward, you leave space behind that the queens can occupy.
Right, but now, wait, he's covered this diagonal, he's covered these squares, so you cannot do anything there. This is the only way you can enter with the queen, and he hasn't tried that just yet. So maybe now, okay, so he moved the bishop over, but now that leaves this pawn weak. So, but he doesn't want to push g5 because there's going to be a capture, and then one of those squares will be free for the knight. So white is going to have to, okay, now they repeated the position. I don't know, black has to be careful about figuring out where these pieces have been and how many times, because, you know, if you get the position 3 times and you miss the opportunity to claim a draw, you won't have it anymore. You can't claim after you've made a move. So you better get it right the first time. Actually, I don't know if I ever seen this, but if it doesn't have, yeah, I think if you claim it wrong and then you claim it correctly, I don't even know if it counts anymore.
Yeah, I don't really know what the rule is, to be quite honest.
But okay, white is changing things a little bit here, so.
Yeah, it's not an easy position to win, and with so little time on the clock, you know, this is one of these positions where you have to use what's called schematic thinking, and schematic thinking is where do I put the pieces as opposed to the specific tactics.
I agree.
And with very little time on the clock, it's hard to figure out exactly where they go. But it's an interesting position.
It's a very interesting position, and we'll have to stay with this game. We can announce that there was a draw in this game they were looking at earlier. Let's see how they got to that draw. So bishop g2 is played. White is just waiting. Black advanced with the h-pawn, and finally white had to give that pawn up. And they both went for a queen, but now there's no way for white to win this, and the players agreed on a draw. Okay.
Got one right. That's good.
This position, I think we just didn't get the result there.
Yeah, that has to be over.
It's kind of funny that for that specific game, Aaron's game against Talia, we had the result really early on, and then it disappeared. Now that the result should be there, it doesn't want to go back.
Right. Let's
It
go
happens sometimes
to
with the
Quesada Perez's game. They're in a rook and pawn ending here, and this has been an interesting game. And it looks like white.
How did this?
It looks like white could lose this game now.
Black went on with that a pawn that we said should not have been allowed. Okay, so they traded bishops, and now what is going on in this position?
Yeah, I guess this is probably still a draw.
This is a draw.
Yeah,
this is a draw.
because
if
the
you
E5
win that
pawn's
pawn
too
and
weak,
you
yeah.
bring in the king here,
Right.
you'll be fine. But you need to get it there, and you need to get this pawn first. Will you be able to get it?
I think white can just play rook a5
Yeah,
and,
that's
and
the
just
only move.
and just shuffle.
Yeah, because this.
Well, black's going to get in f6.
He will. Yes.
So rook a5, rook e6, rook a7.
I mean, this is pretty much forcing.
And
King g7. Oh, sorry. King here. King g6.
I think I want to put my rook on a7.
Oh, I'm sorry. You don't play king e3?
King e3 is fine. Yeah, sure.
Okay. You have to
I
take.
have to take on Pesson.
Black is gonna play this game.
Right, right. I
long
wanted
time.
to put the rook on a7 just
I understand.
to, but
I
it's
understand, but
yeah.
but the thing is, if I still have that move, and then in that case, you still have to take en passant, I think.
Yeah.
And then I'll take with the rook, and you still might need to go back there unless you're
Yeah.
attempting this. But if you go king c4, I think I'm going to
You cut me off. You can't put
Cut
the
you
king
off.
on c4, so that
yeah.
would be
So
losing.
that would be quite bad because that's a g pawn, which is going to be winning. So okay, so you would have to come back here, and I have to go back there,
And then we get the same position.
and then we get the same kind of idea. So the question is, can Black find a way to improve this position? Which actually the king may go through here, so that if you go king g4, which you probably have to play, it's going to be hard for Black to
Yeah,
progress
I think this is a draw. I mean, you have the blockade square, and you're tied down to a weak pawn on e5. So
Well, you're getting to g4. If you didn't get
Right.
there, then I would have some chances. But
if the black
this way,
king,
the problem is like, you know, because I have this idea, but luckily you have that check.
Mhm.
So if I stay hidden there, then you would just take my pawn directly, so I couldn't move my rook off the e file. So yeah, I guess it will be a draw. But he went for this move. Oh my goodness! Oh my goodness! This actually happened.
oh,
This actually happened.
well,
And
that's
Black is gonna win this game after being a pawn up.
Yeah, you know, it's amazing.
I mean, maybe he still has some chances, but it's gonna be very tough. You need to bring the rook back. No, it's not gonna help you. It's not gonna help you.
Yeah, it's amazing how many strong players, and again, I've been guilty too, not that I'm in these guys' class, not studying the rook and pawn endings. And one of the biggest issues is either having your king cut or a more active king from another player.
He may somehow still be able to make a draw. He may still be able, but he's not. I don't know.
Maybe.
Here, wait. So I go here. You go. Wait a second. Maybe it's still a draw. But if he doesn't bring his king back, you can forget the draw. You can forget it. This is still gonna be a draw, I think, because you cannot go king h4 and g5 because now I'm going
You
back.
got the rook back, yeah.
And let's see, do we have time for our activity of the rook, activation of the rook?
I think you want to check
Here?
the king. No. Check the king on
Check the
f6.
king?
Yeah. Because now I've got.
I can't go here because the rook here.
Well, you can go there, but I'm
Okay,
just
but
saying.
I'll come here.
Okay.
G5. Check, check. Here, here, here.
Yeah, if that's a draw if
And-
the king's behind the pawn. I need to get activity.
Well, there's an extra pawn here which can give black.
Right.
We need to usually keep the rook in front of the pawn to stop it from pushing, but here black gets to push it. So I think this is a big problem. This is a very big problem for white. So now if we do that, white has to go for this other pawn and just hope that he is in time.
Patrick's suggesting that you're the real pro here at the draw evaluation, but I think we're waffling here between a draw and a win. I'm not sure.
It's kind of tricky. It's kind of tricky, this endgame, because there's some chances, but yeah, of course you can turn on because how
Right.
many pieces are
But
there?
with no time on the clock, I mean, especially once you moved your king over to the c file.
He brought it to d5. I cannot believe that's the right approach. So what does he want to do? Rook e8, and now which check does he want to give? So, okay, wait, maybe he somehow manages to give this check
Yeah,
here.
maybe you can just keep checking.
And this. Okay, maybe he's found
Yeah.
some other defense mechanism with the king there. I would expect the king back. Was
Yeah.
this forcing though?
I think so. Yeah. Okay, we are going to have an interview with Aaron Grabinski, so why don't we go to that?
Yeah,
And
let's do that. Stay close.
Straight out of his win against Talia Cervantes. Aaron, obviously this is a good win for you with the white pieces. Obviously the best result you can possibly get. How are you feeling?
Pretty good, thank you. It wasn't really expected. I thought it might be a draw halfway through the game, but yeah, a win is always nice. I was hoping before the game to win, of course. I was wide and much high rated, but she's a tough player. So
Yeah, Talia, she's a little tricky.
yeah, definitely.
So take us through your game and show the people what you did.
Sure. Okay, so I'd prepared this variation of the Sicilian. I knew she was going to play Nyzhnyk. She had some games with e5, but I figured she'd probably play Sicilian because she's in good form this tournament. She drew her first 2 games against Grandmasters, so she's probably pretty ambitious. And after the game, we were talking, and I think she wanted to beat me. So yeah, scary.
Playing for a win.
So I go knight c3, and I figured, okay, here she can go knight f6 or a6 because she's a Nyzhnyk player. Yeah, I saw, okay, a6, fine. And knight f6, I had something else in mind. And then we get this variation where, yeah, queen d2. Oh, interesting. There's analysis arrows. Yeah, I could play queen d2 and b3, I guess. But my idea was queen d3, and after knight f6, knight d5. And my friend actually recommended this as an option when I was preparing last night. And he was like, yeah, okay, if e6 takes, and you have c3, and now bishop g5 is coming. So maybe h6, and then you go bishop e3, and white is slightly better. And you can't, and I was like, well, what about bishop e7? And if bishop e7, I was like, oh, but bishop g5, and you take on e7, and it's no good because d6 is weak.
Of course.
But she goes bishop e7. And at this point, I was like, wait, what? And I was like, oh, but this isn't even a good move because knight e5, and what am I doing?
Oh, that's actually really interesting.
Yeah, and I saw knight e5, and I'm like, thanks a lot. That isn't even good. All right.
Thanks, bro.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's not bad, but like his recommendation wasn't really what I thought it would be. So that was a nice surprise early in the game. A good way to start the day. Because now I think my best option is probably to take the knight and go knight c4. But after queen c5, I'm probably just worse. This wasn't very appetizing. So I didn't go bishop e5. I just switched it up, played bishop e2, which, okay, now I'm out of prep and my position is fine, but there's nothing special. She's, of course, fine here. She played this move, really good move. Queen g6 and e5 was a really good combination for her. Because now I realized, yeah, okay, she wants to castle go f5, and her counterplay is pretty quick. She has her knight over pawn structure. Probably she's very comfortable here. And I'm not sure what my plan should be, because, yeah, it's pretty tough to find a plan. She just wants bishop e6 or just f5. So I go knight e2. Yeah, that makes sense positionally, but she goes f5. And here, I thought she might go f4 and try to mate me.
Yeah, it seems logical,
like,
yeah.
Throwing everything.
All the bishops, yeah.
Yeah, but I thought, okay, I have knight c4, knight b6, some counterplay in the middle, d6, b3, bishop a3, some options. Anyway, she castles, and I was happy to see this because now I take on f5, and I thought, okay, now maybe I can get a central grip with the d5 and e4 squares, positional bind, let's say. So that's something. So I was kind of happy here until she played queen h5, and I realized bishop h4, rook f6, she's going to try to mate me.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh, my
She's
bishop
coming.
yeah, she's coming. The bishop on d5 is really pretty, but her pieces are going to try and hurt me. So I wasn't really sure what to do here. Played knight c4. If bishop h4, I have bishop f3. That's important.
Oh, yeah, actually, yeah.
And if I trade the queens, I'm pretty happy there. So bishop h4 doesn't really work. So she goes rook f6. Very ambitious move. I thought for a bit here. She wants rook g6, I guess. So I played, or even just double, but it's kind of scary. My queen on g3 is unstable. So I go here, offering a trade. And at this stage of the game, yeah, queen e2, queen e3, queen h5. And I was like, maybe I should just make a draw. So I go queen g5. And I wasn't 100% committed to taking the threefold because I was checking the score sheet. I knew it hadn't been, like, I hadn't locked it in yet.
Yeah.
If she wanted it, I hadn't committed that because it was only 2 so far. But I was like, yeah, my position is not that good. Like, if she goes queen e2 again, then I probably go queen e3, queen h5, and then I maybe make another move. But it's not so easy because I was thinking here I can go queen b6, but queen b6 is, she probably has bishop d3. And yeah, I just didn't like this stuff. I don't know. It seemed pretty scary. So, but she goes queen e8, and I was smiling internally because I was like, oh, okay. She wants to win.
She's trying to game here.
It's pretty ambitious. So I'm like, okay, fine. Queen g3. and I thought, yeah, my plan is, what was my plan? I think I wanted to go knight e3 or something. And if rook g6, she played rook g6, but she could have also forced me to make a decision. If she goes queen h5, if I go queen g5, it's a draw, but if I don't go queen g5, then I have to play some probably bad move and maybe lose. I don't know if I don't want the draw. But okay, she goes rook g6, and this helped me because she played very directly, but I don't think this was so great for her because now my queen gets a very good square on d3. And her queen is on e8 now, so her attacking potential is seriously diminished. The queen covers the third rank, so
Yeah.
bishop h3 is nothing. Rook d8, f3, and the nice trick because, yeah, she kind of fell for it. She played bishop h3, now I have f4.
No.
The bishop regains protection.
Yeah,
to
that's
2.
so spicy.
Yeah, so she has to go all the way back. And now, of course, white should be much better because all her pieces is
Yeah.
retreating, queen is on e8, and now I have good coordination. Every piece makes sense now for me.
Crazy how
have
that
to do well.
works.
Yeah, it's like just a few moves, everything kind
Yeah.
of flipped. But bishop e3, I think, is maybe a mistake because I gave her a chance to kind of get back in some activity. Because right now, it looks very depressing for her. Like, it doesn't look nice at all. Like, I
Yeah.
don't know where her pieces are going. So I thought, okay, just bishop e3, I need to finish development. But I should have done maybe knight b6 or something else because now she goes b5, and I was like, yeah, b5 is a good move because now when I move the knight, I have to. She takes on f4, and she gets knight e5. And when she puts the
Oh
knight
yeah,
on
that's
e5,
a nice knight.
yeah, that knight is very annoying. I can't really take it without giving up something. And if I don't take it, yeah, the knight's a very good piece. I have a slight advantage in terms of pawn structure, but that's about it. It's not a lot. So I'm like, okay, queen e2, bishop g4, queen e3. I was hoping for bishop g4 because now when I put the queen here, there's no knight g4. So the
Yeah.
queen is a little more stable. And queen d7, but I mean, at this stage, yeah, we have a lot of pieces, so it's still a full game. But my main hope was she was getting low on time. She had under 10 minutes, something around here, maybe. Yeah, 10 minutes, and I had 27. So that was the main advantage I had, like, on the clock. I
Yeah,
wasn't-
you're playing for some time.
yeah, I mean, the position I have is good, but I don't think she's really that much worse. So bishop e4, rook f6, h3. Yeah, and here she could play bishop e6, but she goes bishop h5. Okay, but I think bishop e6 was better because now I go bishop d5, and I put the bishop back there, so knight e4.
Yeah, knight e4 is coming.
It's coming. A bishop on h5 is just kind of off the side, so... Well, she bishop g6, good move, knight e4. And I thought she should maybe take the knight. But then I have two bishops, which is something slightly better pawn structure. Can go a4 later, squeeze an endgame maybe. And she's low on time, so I thought, okay, very comfortable. But she goes here, and I was like, okay, fine. I rook d1, hinting at something. I don't think it works right away at all, but the queen is online with the rook, so it makes sense.
Yeah.
Queen c7, I expected that, but now I have knight g5. And I force her to give up her bishop.
Yeah, that's sad for the bishop.
Yeah,
Aw.
so she has to give me this, which I was initially pretty happy about. But after, and takes I think might be a mistake. I think she shouldn't give up the f file. I think she should just move her rook, like rook d8 here. Because the f file is pretty important, I thought. So I'm not sure why she just preemptively gave it up like this. Because now, okay, I have the f file and it seemed pretty good. Her knight can't really move because there's queen e8 and rook f8. Mate, so... I thought, okay, king h1. And here I thought maybe she'd play queen c5, but she goes bishop d3, which is probably a mistake because of what she missed in the next move. But queen c5 here was interesting. I can trade queens and go bishop e7, taking advantage of the back rank threats, and the c5 pawn is loose. I have the two bishops. Some pressure. It should be...
bishop e7 feels good there, yeah.
Yeah, it should be nice, but... Okay, I'm not sure if it was enough to win. But she goes bishop d3, which I'm pretty sure is a mistake because I have rook f7. She missed this. She thought she could take with the queen, but she forgot somehow her knight is blocking the rook. I'm not sure. But basically, she can't take the rook here.
Yeah.
So she definitely missed that. But here I was thinking maybe she goes queen c5. But then I play queen takes c5, dc5, rook c7.
Ooh.
And I should be seriously better there. If she plays c4, I can go bishop e3, bishop d4. And the bishops are monsters. My king is much safer than hers. The queenside pawns, I just start harassing them with the rook. Back rank, it should collapse. So she goes queen c8. And yeah, here I had a nice tactical idea, it turns out, which thankfully I saw. I almost played rook e7. But okay, rook takes e7, bishop takes e7, queen c7. And she's probably holding that. I could go rook f4, but that also didn't make too much sense. I'm not sure. She could retreat the bishop or something. And then I realized, oh, wait, okay, rook takes g7 might be an option. And I only saw this because I ended up realizing after bishop h6 check, she can't go to f6, g6. It was kind of random how I stumbled across it because I was going to move the rook somewhere else. I also saw rook a7, but then she has knight c6 and I might lose.
So you just found it by process of elimination?
Yeah, I mean, I was looking at all my moves, and then it just happened to come into my brain. So I was like, oh, well, okay.
Feels good.
Yeah, let me think about it. So actually, yeah, rook takes g7. She has to take the rook. Knight. If the knight moves, I should have something pretty nasty. For example, knight g6, let's say, or knight g4. Okay, let's say knight g4, for example. If she doesn't take the rook, she can play knight g4, and that's tricky because you might think, well, okay, my queen is attacked twice. Rook e1 might be a back rank mate for me. My rook on g7 is still hanging, so knight g4 is definitely a spanner in the works, but I'm pretty sure after knight g4 I can just go rook e7, and if knight takes e3, bishop f6 is mate.
Oh yeah, that's pretty cool.
And queen d4, it's lost. After rook e7, her king's toast, because the bishops just start to kill her. So yeah, she has to take the rook, and then bishop h6. If king f6, g6, queen g5 is mate. So king h8 is fourth, and I had to double check this, but I was like, okay, there's no way she defends g7 and f6. That has to be mate. And then, yeah, there's no way. Her queen would have to get to e7. That'd be the only defense. And if she could get her queen to e7, she would win the game. But because queen f6 is mate, and so is queen g7 and bishop g7, she resigned here. So,
man, sadly that the queen can't move like the knight, right?
Yeah, that's good.
It's a shame.
That's good for me. So, yeah, interesting game. I think she played pretty well, just missed some things at certain points. Her time management probably could have been a little better, but I mean, all of our time managements could be a little bit better. So.
I mean, yeah. So that's going to put you on 2 points now. You're going to be going into the next round with the black pieces, most likely?
Yeah, and probably against someone strong.
Someone really strong?
Someone very strong. Stronger than Talia.
That doesn't sound like you're so happy about it.
I mean, it's good, but I get black again. I had black last night against Antipov, and I think I had a good opening, but yeah, he just outplayed me. So I hope that doesn't happen again tonight. That would be very depressing.
Well, we wish you the best of luck here. Thank you for coming on, man.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jacob, for bringing in that interview, and a very nice game by Aaron Grabinski. I really enjoyed his taking us through the game, and congratulations for the win. It was kind of exciting to hear that he stumbled across that rook takes g7 move, and I can show it here for the audience. In this position, after rook f7, he wasn't sure where to go with the rook. If you guys missed that interview when he was saying, yeah, so I realized I couldn't go rook e7 because she would hold that endgame after the trade. Rook a7, maybe knight c6, and I'm in trouble. So then I stumbled across this move. Maybe he just said it for the audience, or maybe that's how it worked. But process of elimination is a nice technique to get to the right move sometimes.
I think it was a nice interview, and I think there is a process to finding the moves. And there's sort of this check, capture, threat process that you should go through here. And you made an aggressive move with the rook. All the pieces are pointed at the king side. So there's also this concept that when the pieces are ready and you can't improve anymore, your opportunity is right then and there. And if you let it slip, you may let the game slip away.
That's right.
And I think, to Aaron's point there, any other move and he's not better.
Yeah, so you have to find the right one. I was watching, I was going over some courses on Chessable, and Judith Polgar has this thing that she calls CCTV. It's like checks, captures, threats, and variations that you have to take under consideration in order to be able to get to the right move in each position. But this game is about to be over, which it was a crazy game we've seen. And it's the final game left. There was a result in that game, a draw finally in that game they were looking at earlier between Dudin and Quesada Perez. So we've seen the position until here, and then they just made the trades, and the game ended in a draw. So it looks like Dariush has resigned in the end. In that game, we can just replay the final moves because it was such a gorgeous final. I think we were discussing the possibility of white trading the queens and getting into that end game that possibly could have been a draw. At least we found some beautiful line that led into a draw despite having a pawn and a bishop up or something like that. But looks like Nicolas Theodorou was able to find some other way. So he's blocked the e-file, strengthened the bishop there so that no ideas with knight d7 could allow black's queen to get active, and then he came with the queen on the a-file. This really is definitely reminiscent of that Capablanca tray ball game that I always like to mention for some reason. It's one of my favorites. From that point of view that your opponent has nothing to do and you just get to just improve every single move. So he doesn't trade queens even here. And finally, he takes that knight. It's crazy to believe that this is the best move in the position when you give up a bishop for the knight that wasn't doing anything for the past 20 moves or so.
Right, but this is where you get to sacrifice all of your pieces to crack through. And you know, Queen E8's capitulation, so we should at least show the variation if black takes with the F pawn after king takes F8.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
I mean, Queen E8, you're just losing the game. So presumably here you play bishop takes, H takes, and H7, and it's just over.
And you have no way to stop the H pawn from promoting. So it's going to be a mate.
And this is the whole Leela concept here, is that even though H6 closes files, the king is sort of crowded out and in danger for the long term. And here we are at move 71, so we are 45 moves past where white played H6, give or take.
Mm-hmm.
And yet it was just a slow build. And you know, we were looking at the evaluation in our various breaks, and white was always significantly better in this game.
Definitely, yeah. And here G7 was the move that Theodorou decided to play. Capturing here was the other option, but that would give black the opportunity to have perpetual check at least, if not more. Here probably even more. Maybe. I don't know. There's no point to
as long as white keeps his king on the dark squares. I don't see that there's, but maybe.
Well, we start with that pawn.
Yeah, you get them all.
And then maybe we don't get the. I mean, I don't think we can take because our bishop is hanging, but we do have perpetual at least.
Sure.
I think. So there's no reason to get into this position. There's no reason. So G7 check. He played, and then he brought in the king. It's kind of funny, we're looking as we're watching the interview as well, at Queen C7, and the idea is that we are actually giving up the bishop. Take that bishop, and now there's going to be a checkmate. So, you know, you only have one check, unfortunately, with black, and you still have this pawn, so black can never think of any kind of stalemate in this position, unfortunately, because that pawn will always be able to move. It's really a gorgeous game, and I feel for Dariusz for having had to struggle in this game. And he tried to activate his queen, but this bishop somehow, together with the queen, they're powerful enough that they keep most of black's checks. So even if Dariusz was able to get that g-pawn and give a few more checks, in the end there was nothing left, king b3, and now the idea, once again, this idea of sacrificing the queen to get a stalemate never really works, because that pawn, although blocked right now, is never going to be captured. You can't, if you sacrifice the queen here, we won't make this blunder to stalemate. We will capture with the king. And we move the king somewhere, and then there's going to be a mate.
But he did try and sacrifice the queen. He has the only
he did try to go queen e2. Yeah, so obviously if you take it, now that's a stalemate, so you can't do that. He also keeps his bishop protected, so you can't take it. But Theodorou had this nice move. Bishop takes h7 check, and after king takes, he promoted, which allowed his other queen to come into play with check the next move, followed by queen g7 mate. So in this position, black resigned. If he had taken here, and how many moves do we find a mate? I know I only see 1 in 2, maybe. Hopefully I'm not missing 1 in 1. That would be bad. But here and
that's a fantastic game, and we're going to take a look at the results for round 3.
What a game, what a day it was.
Yeah,
What a
we
day.
had some good fighting chess here. On board one, we had Nyzhnyk with a draw against Brian, and that was the game where White had the two connected pass pawns and Black had the split pawns in the end game, so that was a very interesting game. Darius is really a world-class player, so for
Yes.
Nicholas, that is a very impressive win. The Fidel Corrales game with Aram was a fantastic fighting game with the deep opening preparation, the F3 Nimzo Indian. The Quesada game, it looked like an opportunity for I am Gleb Duden there, but unfortunately he wasn't able to convert. For Bruzon, if you recall, that game ended very early. That was an exchange Slav that turned into a very sharp tactical fight, and Bar took a draw. And Elshan and Christopher Yu, they played a very correct, closed Catalan, if that's a fair way to put that,
Yes,
that
yes.
ended in a draw. And Brandon Jacobson, he played a nice win against Kostya, where he had the Rosalimo Sicilian with bishop takes c6, and he did a wonderful job of explaining, where the black pieces needed to be to defend his attack, and when, Kostya really made two what appeared to be relatively small positional errors, and Brandon just rolled over him after that. And then we saw the game with Dennis Boros, and I can't remember if we showed it on the broadcast where Dennis sacked a piece on g3 with
We
the
did,
bishop.
we did, yes.
And he took, unfortunately, with his rook on or bishop on f3, when actually rook takes f3 would have been a winning position for him. So it was a move transposition that ended up throwing a win away for Dennis, which was very unfortunate for him. And Aaron, he just had an interview where he showed us very nicely how he won that game. And I don't think we spent a lot
We
of
did
time on
not.
Josiah's game at all today. And I know we didn't look at Irene's game.
All right, let's see the last results there. Caleb Denby drew against Evan Park. Alice Lee won her game against Ralph Tan. Aaron Jacobson, so the brother of Brendan, won against Lyndon Lee, and Sila Chaglar won against Nicolas Ladun. Nicolas has gotten a couple of tough losses. Gabriela Antova won her game against Julian Proleko, and we already let you know about the buys they were taken in this round. So very exciting chess. It was great, going over all these games with you. I was very much impressed about everything, I gotta say. I love the attacking games, but I also love this kind of positional games where someone just definitely outplays the other person, where they don't have much to play. Those are, I think, the most beautiful for me, but hopefully the audience has enjoyed our commentary. Very excited for tomorrow. While today there's another round that is going to be played at 5 p.m., so in about an hour, round 4 of the Super Swiss starts. We are not going to go over that game, and we will be back tomorrow at 11:20 a.m. Central Time for commentary of round 5. You can always replay these videos both on Twitch and YouTube on St. Louis Chess Club's page. Feel free to tweet us. We'll try our best to respond to all of your questions, and we wish you a wonderful rest of your day, and looking forward to seeing you tomorrow at 8:20 a.m. Central Time.
Yes, thank
Not
you very
8,
much.
11:20.
I was
11.
sitting there going, holy cow, I really have to get up early tomorrow morning. You're scaring
Well,
me.
I had to mess something up. All right, we'll see you tomorrow, guys.
Thank you.
The St. Louis Chess Club's 2023 chess season launches in March for the second annual American Cup. World-class chess masters will gather in the chess capital of America, St. Louis, Missouri, to compete in a double elimination tournament for a combined $300,000 in prizes. We will cover all the action live from the World Chess Hall of Fame from March 17th through March 26th. Tune in for the best game in chess streaming live. For more information, visit uschesschamps.com.
This has been a presentation of the St. Louis Chess Club. Any reproduction or distribution of this content without the express written consent of the St. Louis Chess Club is prohibited.